Strange time of living in panic and hysteria. Poor man learn, the rich man don't care for your narcissist mindset spread like malaria. Sit back and watch the show. America, Britain split through fickle shit. A government of hypocrites. These counterfeit politicians sit in parliament, not adequate. Come on. Needlessly bleeding resources all dry. Turn a blind eye if it means a pay rise. Oh, what a shame it would be, I would die if number 10 Downing Street burned in a fire. Only joking, only messing, don't be stressing. I'm a peaceful adolescent, there's no need to be unpleasant. Write my thesis in a rhyme scheme to analyze the brain while my fingers on the trigger of a money game. Oh, rain, 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 a storm it comes our way. And no surprise to distorted lies, poison in the veins, but we got upon the blame, 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 blame. It's easier to blame, but point the mirror at ourselves. We're all part of this whole money game. This old money game.
All right. It is Wednesday. We have a little bit of a special show tonight because I've been reading, or listening, I guess in this case, an audio book, A Brave New World. I followed up in 1984 with Brave New World. I think next is 451 Fahrenheit, maybe The Island. But yeah, I like the way this is unfolding as far as kind of my reading theme, along with what's going on with the craziness that is happening in our political society right now. I think that it just kind of really speaks to what's going on. So here we are again. We're going to be checking out some news and looking at that, and then we're going to be getting to Brave New World, and we're going to be talking about, like, whether or not, in my opinion, I think when you look at the internet and how it influences, like, kids today, and how TV and things like that influence kids today, I wonder to myself whether or not the books of the earlier generation have, in some ways, really affected the mindset of the people that are now politically activated, people that are voting, people that are participating in this mild insanity that is going on with our society right now, politically speaking. Because when you look at things like A Brave New World, when you look at things like 1984, you start to see some instances where people may have a subconscious fear of these things happening and their revolt against it. As far as 1984 goes, 1984 was such a gritty, dirty look at how you could be punished into a society of attempted egalitarianism. And Brave New World was the opposite of that. It was, what if instead of punishing your way into it, what if you were to incentivize your way into it? And it was just such an amazing book, to be honest with you. I just finished it today. It really was a great book. When you finish 1984, when you finish a book like Brave New World, and I won't spoil the ending, but I can say this: it's not an entertainment value book. 1984 wasn't an entertainment value book. Brave New World wasn't an entertainment value book. They're written in a very old style. There's a lot of conversation, not a lot of action. It's not an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or Sylvester Stallone. It's a cerebral journey. And when you finish these books, you have to actually kind of put them down and just sit there for a little while and think to yourself, what was that about? How did we get there? And what am I supposed to get from this? I like to talk about the movie Arrival a lot, because in the movie Arrival, it starts out really crazy. it starts out with a young woman, I think she's about 18, passing away, and her mom, a scientist, is there with her. And it's within the first few minutes of the movie, and I watched that movie, and I thought, oh my God, why am I even watching this movie? I'm about to cry within the first few seconds. And then you kind of go on this journey where these aliens come down, and I'm going to spoil this, so if you don't want to spoil, this is where you forward the video. Sorry, live stream people. In the movie, the aliens, they're trying to communicate with these aliens that have came down, and they're entering in these big egg-shaped things, and there's a scientist, and the scientist is the woman from the beginning of the movie. And it doesn't really tell you that this is all a flashback of sorts, or a flash forward at the start of the movie. And you watch this movie thinking it's a sci-fi movie. And then you watch the whole movie, and the movie ends. And then you sit there thinking to yourself, that wasn't a very good sci-fi movie. There wasn't a lot of action. It wasn't very entertaining. What the hell was this movie even about? And as you sit there, and if you think about it for long enough, as I did, you sit there and you think about it for long enough, you realize this isn't a sci-fi movie. There's a moral to this movie. But you only get the moral to that movie if you sit down and think about it for long enough. If you actually apply critical thinking to why the things happened in the way that they happened throughout the movie, you start to realize that this is a movie that is really a debate on pro-life versus pro-choice. And, you know, I wondered whether or not I was correct about that, as my wife got tired of talking to me about it. And then when I looked it up, and I looked up the author, and that was one of his things. He was, I want to say, a Japanese man, that his thing in books was writing books that had kind of a facade of a story, and hid inside of them was hidden this message of morality, you know. And I don't know what his opinion morally on being, you know, pro-choice versus pro-life was, but it definitely begged the question. And it was such a good movie, in my opinion. And I think everybody should watch Arrival. I ask everybody if they have, and it's kind of my litmus test for telling whether or not somebody has any actual ability to do critical thinking. Because if they tell me it was a terrible sci-fi movie, it wasn't very entertaining, then generally I look at that and I go, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So what I'm saying is when you read 1984, when you read Brave New World, you don't end the movie, or I'm sorry, the book, going, wow, what a journey. That was so entertaining. No, instead you end with, what was that about? Why? How did that make me feel? What did I learn from that? And it's kind of something that's missing from literature nowadays. I think that we as a society, specifically as Americans, I don't know if it goes for the rest of the world, but in American society, we need to be beaten over the head with why we like it. We need to, like, the moral has to be shoved into our face, and a lot of times nowadays we don't like morals. If you're on the left, you get really angry if it seems like it's a right-leaning moral. If you're on the right, you get really angry if it's a left-leaning moral. So we're kind of at this point where literature and movies and entertainment as a whole has become really, like, very subpar. It's become it's not thinking. So reading 1984 and reading Brave New World was actually kind of difficult. Because, like I said, a very slow literary style. A lot of talking, a lot of themes, a lot of, setting up, foreshadowing. And not even of the middle or even the climax of the book, but the end. There's a lot of foreshadowing for where you're going and what you're going to think about this story. It's a really good story, in my opinion. I thought it was great in contrast to having read 1984 and then Brave New World right afterwards. And I think that anybody that wants a bit of an adventure, really, to do it in that order. Next will be either Animal Farm or maybe 451 Fahrenheit. I'm not sure which one next. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and move on here. We'll talk a little bit more about Brave New World once we take a look at the news. Because we like to take a look at all the craziness that happened in the last week. And our favorite place to go, as always, is the Lincoln Project. So let's take a look at the last week in news in the Republican Party, January 16th, 2024, by the Lincoln Project.
It's a lot of cold weather. We've got a lot of meetings tonight. We're doing well. We have a lot of tremendous support.
Him and Ron DeSantis stand the same way. They are whatever species of lizard it is, they're the same species.
Being indicted for you. My first thought went to, well, Jesus Christ died for my sins.
Oh,
We will
no.
pray for God. We will be with God.
Under President Trump, there were only 2 genders.
Attention Boeing executives, DEI must die, not passengers on your planes.
Congratulations, you're.
I love the DEI thing. The DEI thing just really trips me out. Because it's not like when Elon Musk says something like, would you rather your safety, would you rather have diversity and be less safe or have the most qualified person? It's not like they're picking black pilots that are bad. It's not like DEI means that they're like, oh, only white people applied. We're going to have to go get the janitor. He'll have to fly the plane. That's not, I don't know if everybody understands that or not. Once again, this is an exaggeration of how things are that seems to continue to be happening. DEI doesn't mean that they picked like an underqualified African American pilot over a overqualified white pilot. That's not how it works.
Able to read the name of the resolution. I don't vote on the names.
Oh, Congressman, I don't think you're trying to question my intelligence now, are you?
4 months before the Escalade ride down with our great First Lady.
No, I'm just saying you don't have time to prepare for this like I did.
Do you mean the 2 pages that I read in 2 minutes this morning and highlighted the resolve that the House of
2 minutes.
Representatives?
The dog
He's like, I took 10.
Oh.
Good for you. You took 2 minutes.
Excuse me, hold on. Excuse me, I'm doing this.
It's a shame that we had to put up DeSantisLies.com, honestly.
Second thing is, I know, but you're interrupting and you're being rude. Everyone else is listening, and you're...
Dude, full mom DeSantis. Full mom DeSantis right there. Oh.
You're butting in. I don't care. I know you have an agenda.
You're
Our
so
own people
desperate.
first. We
You're
have
just
to put
so desperate.
You know, I watched him last night. He's standing up for the shoes, his fancy shoes. We have a
Oh.
Capitol that we all love. Right now it's a rat-infested, graffiti-infested shithole.
Real estate is an art, not a science.
Who's running the show? Is it Obama?
The second coming of Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, and Mao Zedong combined is Barack Obama.
You know you have ID for everything, right?
Wow.
You go to the grocery store, you have ID.
No. Dude, you guys know that meme? You know that meme where it's when things are bad at the office, your boss shows up with pizza? That's what I see right there.
They're trying to get a man in office that can't put 2 sentences together, and they're doing that.
Oh, all right. Anyways, no Vivek yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. All right. Anyways, oh man, you think he needs a lot more pizzas, Robert? Yeah, I think so as well. I don't think that's going to be enough. There's not enough pizza in the world to make this morale get any better. All right. Well, I want to watch some more news and stuff, but first, I would like to go over a little bit about this because what I really think about, like I said, the older generation, and those are the people that are voting for the most part over on the Republican side, and on the Democrat as well, but the Democrat side appeals to a much younger set of voters. I think it's something like 67% of young people that were polled said that they were, if not left, even socialist in their ideals. And I think that what you're seeing a lot nowadays from the older generation on the right is this subconscious fear. And when I read books like 1984, when I read books like Brave New World, and then I see things in society that kind of mirror these fears. When in Brave New World, you even see some of the social culture of YouTube with the manosphere and the red pill movement, because you see the ideals of the alpha. You hear about how the alpha in Brave New World is a man in great physical shape that's taller than everybody else, and all of the people that aren't alpha, that are below the alpha, are all subconsciously trained or conditioned to see people that are taller than them as being superior to them. And that's another thing you see in Red Pill. Like they have this whole thing about that women don't like short men, which is absolutely ridiculous. Some women like tall men, some women like short men, some women don't care. But you see some real strange things that come from these books that I wonder, because I don't know if these people can even read or not, whether or not it's subconscious, as though it was something that was bred into these people at an early age, if those books that they actually read in high school actually stuck with them. Because, like I said, you see a lot of that. And I would even say, as far as Brave New World goes, that when you look at Brave New World, maybe back in Aldous Huxley's day, this is more of a satire of where the culture that takes on, like, taking drugs to deal with mental illness and stuff was maybe even more of a right-leaning society. Nowadays, I think since the COVID pandemic, a lot of the people that were on the left, that were anti-vax, that were anti-taking pills, anti-big pharma, went over to the right. And what I see now about Brave New World in reading it now is that it does seem more like a utopian society that maybe you would see projected from maybe a left-leaning person like myself. Like, if you ask me if SSRIs are okay, I'm going to tell you, yeah, it's fine. I think that you should exercise. I think that you should change your diet. I think that you should attempt other things before taking SSRIs, but I find no problem with SSRIs. I have family members in my life who have done very well on SSRIs. In fact, would not be functional without the SSRIs. So, in my opinion, when you talk about Soma and you talk about Brave New World, I would say, yeah, I'm a person that thinks that they should that taking SSRIs to help with mental stability is a great thing if it works for you. For some people, it doesn't. For some people, the side effects are too much. When you look at the idea of Brave New World with the socialist ideals of we are all here for each other, I don't have a problem with that. I think in 1984 you saw maybe the other side of that and how that can be abused, and authoritarianism and totalitarianism can come through and take advantage of those types of things. And that's never really suggested in Brave New World. Even the main character is Mustafa Mond, as far as being the world controller, isn't placed in a way in the book as being above everybody else and being better than everybody else, other than his access to certain literature like the Bible and other Shakespeare books and stuff like that. So even that, like, it's actually portrayed in a really actually positive manner. And then when you look at society as a whole today, with polyamory and a lot more openness and less traditional value when it comes to marriage, you could even apply that to the left as well. That a lot of what we're looking at on the left is an openness to people being allowed to have relationships that aren't necessarily monogamous. And that's another theme of Brave New World is actually you're actually frowned upon if you're monogamous rather than if you're polyamorous. And I don't actually think on the left that we frown on people for being monogamous, but we're just much more open to other people's sexualities and their right to behave in the manner that we want. And the main theme of Brave New World being that you can be too happy was a very, very strange avenue or lane Is it Pathway? Hey, what's happening, Bucket? And I think that when you think about it enough, you can see where he's coming from. You can see where, even with YouTube, I said this a lot about the people on the red pill space. And that was, it always seemed really strange to me that a bunch of guys that were having a hard time finding partners were spending 6 to 8 hours on YouTube getting advice about getting partners, when probably the best thing they could have been doing was getting out and talking to people and forming relationships and connections and finding women. So in some ways, it was very much like the Brave New World, where it was a cope, to me at least, that those people were showing up and watching these live streams of other people that were also upset about not being able to find women, and the red pill community and the internet communities and stuff. And so I think in 2023, we're putting a little bit of a different spin on a Brave New World. I think we're looking at a Brave New World now, and we're saying it's maybe not what Aldous Huxley was looking at, but maybe he was along the right path as to what it was going to become. Because I look at a lot of that stuff in a Brave New World, and it was actually hard for me to understand at the very beginning why this would be a bad thing. And it's like too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and that you can be controlled by that good thing, right? And I've always made the joke, work was canceled due to weather. Uh-oh. You got to drink on a work day. If I'm drinking on a work day, I could get in trouble. But I really feel like Brave New World is something that has caused a lot of like fear in the right. I think that the right looks at a Brave New World and worries. Is that what's happening to us? I think they see boogeymen in the happiness of other people. I think they see the things that are going on in society where we're trying to apply equality to people and happiness, and we're just saying, hey, if you want to be religious, don't push it on other people. If you don't want to be religious, that's also acceptable. If you're straight, then great. If you're homosexual or you're trans or whatever your sexuality is, great. If you're male or female, doesn't matter. They hate when you say it doesn't matter. Like you're taking something from them. And in reading The Brave New World, I wondered to myself, is that what it is? Do they look at the happiness of others? Do they see that other people are going, actually, this is working for me, and I like this. The government is doing the things that I want it to do. And do they fear that? Does that make them think, this is what's going to happen? This is how they take control of us. And I forgot who the person was that did the studies that kind of inspired this in Aldous Huxley, but the studies were with rats. And in the rats, they tried to punish good behaviors into the rats. And it worked a little bit, but then when they rewarded the good behaviors from the rats, they saw like a much better result. And that's the idea of you attract more bees with honey, right? But then when you add another element of fear into that. So you kind of layer the happiness over fear. A fear that the only reason things are good is because the government wants you to think they're good. And I even see that today when we talk about Joe Biden's presidency. And you hear about all the good numbers, all the GDP going up, the economy is stronger, unemployment numbers are down. First time we've been, a energy exporter in some odd time. The stock market's through the roof. All of those things seem really good for us. And I think on the left, we're really happy about that. We're excited. We're hopeful. It feels good. And on the right, I think what you see is fear that they're just trying to control you. And once again, I wonder, is this because these people grew up reading this literature? Is it because these people grew up with these fears coming out of World War I and World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War? They came out of all of this with this fear that things can be that bad. And do you now have a culture, specifically of young people, mostly on the left, that are embracing the progress that America is making and the world is making, and they don't see government in quite the negative light that the older generation did? And so it makes me wonder about something like Brave New World and its effect on the subconscious of older white Republicans. Is that why they are afraid of progress? Is that why they're afraid of people being happy with a politician? Is this a process that's going to continue over and over and over again for these people? That you just can't believe it. And then when you get into the actual thought control, and this is where 1984 comes in, is you start to see a lot of, I just heard Vivek last night on Trump's New Hampshire speech, I want to say. Vivek was saying, we're at war. There is a fringe portion of our country that hates you and everything that you love. And that's the very 1984-ish portion of all of this, right? That's the thought control. That's the controlled insanity. The idea that there's these two factions in America that are literally at war is like a controlled insanity. It's doublespeak. You're not at war, but you are at war. And there's even an element of newspeak in his speech. At one point or another, he starts to say just 3 words. He would say, there are only 2 genders. He would say, the traditional family is the best method. It was all the things. The borders are open. It was like very dumbed down. And he just did it for like a few minutes. Said this, just every extreme exaggeration of a position that you could possibly find. It's a lot like when you talk to people about transgenders, and the first argument that they go to is, oh, sure, bro, men can get pregnant. In all the conversations that I've had with transgenders on YouTube, I've never encountered one transgender person that has said to me, men can get pregnant. It's a twisting of words. It's saying that when a transgender person says that they are transitioning to be a man, and they wish to be a man and referred to as a man, and then a Republican goes, well, you can get pregnant, that makes you a woman, and they go, no, I am a man. Oh, that means men can get pregnant. It's a dumbing down. It's a reductionist ideology. I can pull it down into this really simplified concept, and it explains this really complicated concept. And that just isn't true. It takes nuance to have these conversations. And so that's why I think when we look at Brave New World and then we look at 1984, there's a lot of elements from both of these books that are very prescient, but also have to be applied in a certain way to the year 2023 that you couldn't have applied to them when they were written. It was a different world. It's a different world now. And there are things that are very nuanced about a conversation that involves 1984 and a Brave New World and how it affects what we think about things today. So, life is pain. Anyone who says otherwise is selling something. Yeah, and they take a movie quote to heart. Exactly. Life is pain. Anyone who says otherwise is selling you something. That's such a negative outlook on life, right? Like anyone that tells you that you're going to be happy with something is lying to you. And I've been saying this since I started doing this, and I've said multiple times now that the left sells hope and the right sells fear. And I've had a couple of people that say, well, the left sells fear too. Well, they sell fear of climate change. I don't think that that's true. I don't think that it's a fear of climate change. It's the hope of a better world. They say, well, they sell fear of harm to transgenders. And once again, I don't think that the left sells fear of harm to transgenders. I think they sell hope for transgenders to have equal rights. I don't think that the two ideologies are the same. We just talked about the other day on Grey Pills chat, the similarities between the right and the left. And I think that there is still a lot of similar ideals when it comes to what we want. We want people to come here legally and join our society and give just like anybody else in America. We just disagree on how to do it. We also disagree on what to do about people when they've done it illegally. I was just having that talk with John Pedora where I said we live in a society that is, and this is funny because this is something that they actually talk about in Brave New World, is obsessed with punishment. We voyeur it. I mean, if you go back to the times of hangings, and I'm not even speaking specifically of America, I mean all the way back to medieval times, where they would have hangings in public squares, they'd have executions in public squares. There's a voyeurism that comes with people that want to see people being punished. People don't want to see rewards. People don't want to see people feeling gratification. Steven Pinker said it a long time ago. I believe in South Africa, they had something like 600 days in a row where the line for poverty was being driven down, and people were being fed, and people that normally would be starving were being taken care of, and they were getting food. And he's like, you could report that every day for 600 days straight, but it would get no grab. No one would care. You might see it once and go, oh, that's cool. But the first time someone blows themselves up, in a public square, it's across all of the news. And that's because that's what we voyeur. That's what humans want. That's why, like a channel like mine, I struggle because I don't want to put titles up that are disingenuous, that are dishonest. I want to tell people what I'm doing, and if they want to come do it, then let's come do it. I don't want to make videos that are disingenuous. I don't want to make videos that are dishonest. I put up the poll today. What would you like to see more of? And the reason I put that poll up was because I have a YouTube coach now that's trying to help me. And my problem is I'm a very creative person, and when I get something in my head and I want to do something, I just do it. I don't ask anybody. I just do it. And now I have to ask somebody. And he's probably just mildly irritated with the fact that I'm doing a podcast, and I'm doing live streams, and I'm doing reaction videos, and I'm doing Progressive Matters videos, because I love all this stuff. I do what I want. I do what is fun. I do what I enjoy. I do what I feel matters and impacts people. That's what I want to do. But that's not the world we live in. And he's right. And I feel bad for him that he has to deal with me. He's right. If you want to be successful on YouTube, if you want to be successful in any media, you have to be focused. You have to really point people towards the things that they like or that you want them to like. And for me, that's not how I operate. But it is how the world operates. And that's why we see all this like negativity, and that's why we see punishment themes. That's why our prison system is about punishing people and not incentivizing them to get better. There's so much about it. Well, thank you, Bucket. I appreciate you guys. I really do. I love that any of you guys show up any of the times. I'm always happy to see you guys' comments in there. It makes me feel like I'm doing something. It makes me feel like my time isn't wasted. And I don't even care. I could have 0 viewers. When I first started doing this, no one would watch any of my videos. And to be honest with you, I had a moment where it was, I had 200,000 people watching my video. And it scared me. It worried me because I thought, is this who I want to be? Is it like, I like to mock people. I like to make fun of people. I like to make jokes. But I don't want to be a mean-spirited or greedy person. So in those videos, I liked what I was doing and I was having fun what I was doing, but I didn't like some of the reactions. I remember even on the left, I had people that were saying things like, we should do things with guns to Republicans. I don't want to get myself banned again. Because they want to let us have the guns, so we should do that to them to, prove that guns are... And I was like, no, that is not what we're trying to do, man. And so for a minute there, I pulled back really, really hard. For some of my viewers, you guys are still around since those times. And I'm so happy that you guys stayed, because I changed my lane. I changed my path because I got worried about seeing that stuff and what my impact on people was. I didn't want to be impacting people negatively. I wanted to be impacting people positively. I wanted to make people more hopeful. I wanted people to want things to be better. And that goes back to what I was saying, that I do think that the left sells hope. And I think we all have extremists in all of our groups. But I hate when people focus on the extremists. I think that the far right is filled with extremists, and that's why I focus on them. Anyways, get back to what I was talking about here with the Brave New World. I think that maybe the reason that you see so many extremists on that side is when you apply age and education and what these people kind of grew up with, I think you do start to see that things like, or books like Brave New World, books like 1984, even if they weren't aware of it, they were around it. And I see their mentalities. And I also am very concerned when I see people that are educated people like Vivek. Trump, I wouldn't call educated, but he knows his crowd, right? When I see Nikki Haley, even people on the left, I have concerns. I like what they're doing. But I'm always just a little paranoid about why they're doing it, right? That's why I like Jamie Raskin. That's why I like Katie Porter. I really like them as people. I like AOC because she's honest. I said when AOC first came out, not really my style. She needs to bring it down a notch, become more professional. She's became so much better, so much stronger as a politician, so much better as a professional. And that's a good thing. But I wonder if people like Vivek that were educated when they were younger see things like Brave New World, like 1984, not as cautionary tales, but perhaps as blueprints to take advantage of the poorly educated, to take advantage of people that are fearful and hateful and angry. I wonder. There was an article that I read 5 years ago analyzing millennials' humor. Millennials are about dark humor due to all the fucked up shit at their fingertips. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, Bucket. You know where I'm coming from. In any study of psychology, you're going to look at multiple things. In nature and nurture, right? Environment and conditioning, right? And we've gotten away from nuance in these conversations. And I know I'm going on a bit, and I appreciate you for being here for this, Bucket. But there's nuance to studies of condition and nature versus nurture, environment and condition. And when you look at millennials, yeah, you're talking about, okay, they grew up in the internet age, so they had all this dark stuff, so there's a desensitization. And that should be a topic of conversation. Does that affect how we vote? Does that affect how we treat others? And when we speak specifically about the far right and the older right-wing white Republicans, and we talk about the day and age that they grew up in, they grew up during a time where racism was okay. Misogyny was okay. We all have an older person in our life that has a proclivity for a racist term, whether it's the N-word or calling Japanese people or Mexicans certain words. They all have proclivity for it because of nature and nurture. What their environment was, what they were conditioned to, what the people around them were saying. And so I really, really want to know. You guys got to do a study for me. We got to figure this out. Do right-wing, far right-wing people, have they been adversely affected mentally by things like A Brave New World, like 1984? I haven't gotten a chance to read the other ones yet. I have a feeling I'm going to get further and further into this. I'm going to become a little more obsessed with it. You guys might just only see streams about this from this point on. Because it seems like there's something here. There's some parallels. every time I hear Vivek speak, every time I hear Trump speak, or Marjorie Taylor, maybe not Marjorie. Marjorie and Lauren, I think, are just fucking, they're carnival barkers, right? And I wonder, do they know? Is it a blueprint? Anyways, let's move on. Let me not just like sit here and rant about this for a really long time. But I'm going to watch a couple videos. One I did watch already, and this one I hadn't. So I just felt like people should be able to, if they haven't watched it. Also, I don't know if whoever this channel is that has a bajillion ass followers is going to tell me to turn it off. But we're going to attempt to watch this. And this is like a little bit of a summary of what A Brave New World is in case no one has seen it.
I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin.
And that was something that the Savage, John, said in the book. And it made me feel weird about it because it was, you know, I don't know that Aldous Huxley was religious. I know that Aldous Huxley comes from a very well-educated family. I know that his father or grandfather was a Darwinist. I know that he believed in evolution. It felt really strange that he was willing to go there, that he was willing to push this character as the main character that in some ways was very much purporting for religion, even from like almost a Native American character. Really, really like, in my opinion, very versatile was Aldous Huxley's character. That he was a savage on what was considered a reservation outside of a Brave New World's like utopian society, and he was fighting for the right to be religious and believe in God, and he loved Shakespeare. That was really cool too.
Early science fiction was largely utopic, showing us a world where progress and technology led to a better society for all. Well, at least those groups they remembered to include. And this makes sense. Early science fiction comes largely from France.
And one of the things, I don't know if you guys know this too, but one of the themes in it is that when they're creating people, because nobody gives birth anymore, they're creating people, they do different things to them. For the alphas and stuff like that, they give them hormones and genetically modify them to become like bigger and stronger and taller. But for, what was the epsilons and deltas, I want to say, I think deltas and then epsilons were the lowest. The epsilons were black people. They were referred to as Negroes in the book. And I believe, actually, Brave New World, as we talk about book bannings happening so much on the right, I want to say that the book was put up for banning or something like that by a teachers group, and I want to say Missouri or something like that, due to racial overtones. I don't agree with book banning in any way. No way. I think if something is written, it should be loud. I'm the same way with free speech. I think that it should be handled by the market. I think that us as a people, we should be the ones that determine whether or not we will or will not read those things. When it comes to children and people talk about indoctrination, I will once again say that parents are oftentimes coping with the fact that they are not doing a good enough job with their children and monitoring the things that they're watching. I could even do a better job with my children and making sure that they're watching and consuming content that I believe is appropriate for them. But I do not believe in book banning, whether it's from the left or the right, regardless of that. And in hearing this, in the book, I was a little bit like, oh, hold on. Like, why is every one of the lift people and the helicopter guy, why are they black people? But that's a good thing, because it shows in 2023 when you see something written in a different time and black people are portrayed in this way, you have an adverse reaction to it. That doesn't mean you have to ban it. That means you're reacting appropriately to it because you've become more wise. We become better as a civilization. We become more educated. We become more accepting. You don't need to ban it. You just need to, like, analyze it for 2 seconds.
England and the United States. And in those three countries, during the latter part of the 19th century, things were getting better. Sure, a lot was still going wrong, but whole generations grew up in a time where year by year, the average person became more prosperous, healthier, and more in control of their political destiny. So authors simply speculated that trend would continue. Advances in medicine would make us immune to disease. Machines would make our lives labor-free. And the decaying monarchies that they still saw tottering on in Europe would inevitably give way to universal democratic freedom.
And that's pretty spot on. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about like philosophers and like people that are into the arts is that they're really forward thinking and they have such great imaginations, but also that they can be so prescient that they can see the things that are happening and kind of see where the momentum is taking us. And that's why I really do hope that this portion of our time right now, with the instability of America and the instability of the world in general, when you're talking about Israel, Hamas, or Ukraine, Russia, the potential of Taiwan, China. I was just looking at another world conflict just earlier today that's breaking out. I really am hopeful that this is just a portion of our time, much like World War II was for the older generations, and that what I'm seeing with the CHIPS Act, with AI, with where we're going as a country, if we make the right choices, if we vote for the right people, that we're re-entering an age of prosperity and we can start writing about utopia again.
Freedom. Then World War I happened, along with the Russian Revolution, and the cracks started to show. Darker elements and less completely Pollyannan storylines began to make their way into sci-fi. But the Roaring '20s still held these in check. Then came the crash. Fascism started to march across Europe. Russia spiraled from the naive optimism of the revolution into Stalinist totalitarianism.
Mm-hmm. And this is where we got 1984, right? This is when 1984 came through. Another really interesting fact about this is what's the Watson? God, I can't remember the Helmhung, whatever the one of the characters. When he gets banned, once again, spoiler alert, guys. If you don't want spoilers for the book, you're in the wrong place. You're going to get spoilers here. He wanted, when he was punished for getting in a fight, punished, and he was going to be sent away, he was asked, where does he want to go? Does he want to go to a comfy tropical island, or does he want to go somewhere a little bit like colder environment? And he said, put me somewhere where I won't be comfortable, because I believe my writing will be best in a place that does not give me comfort. And when you see something like this, like a book like A Brave New World, coming out of this type of adverse like society, and then he's written it into it, it almost shows you that Aldous Huxley could see what was going on and could appreciate where it actually was helpful and where he got with his mentality and his writing, and could see the silver lining of the situation. Once again, this is where I'm going with this, is we can do that. Hey, what up, DJ? It is Wednesday, my friend. I was surprised today, too. I'm not going to lie. I sat there and went, is it Wednesday? I work every day, guys. I've been working all day, every day, whether I'm doing YouTube content or I'm doing podcasts or I'm working or I'm doing stuff with my kids every day. So, like, sometimes I lose track, too.
And democracy was on the retreat. The idea that capitalism would bring us all a prosperous and easy life lay in shambles across the southern plains of the United States. And so, dystopic literature really began. We'll start with one of my personal favorites, We, the Progenitor novel, written by a Soviet author.
And one of the things I learned about Brave New World, and I find this really funny, so I'm going to rant on this for a second, is that obviously Aldous Huxley, there is no such thing as original thought. Aldous Huxley borrowed from some books. We was supposedly one of the ones that he was accused of plagiarizing. I want to say by H.G. Wells. Maybe it was even by Kurt Vonnegut. But I have an idea for a book, and I call it 2084. Obviously, it's borrowing from 1984 because it's called 2084. Okay? And it also borrows from A Brave New World. But I had the idea before I had read either one of these books. So when I hear about like authors getting super mad about this person stole my idea. Look, if it's been lifted from your book 100%, I can understand being mad. But you don't get to own ideas. Like, you don't get to own thought. The idea that somebody else has a story that is similar because it contains similar elements is kind of ridiculous. We just saw this in music. What was it? It was Ed Sheeran. And he went on his trial and literally brought his guitar and was like, look, this is a pop chord. And he played it. And he's like, and you can find that in hundreds of songs. And I work with a lot of musicians. And I asked my warehouse guy, I go, is that a thing? I don't know enough about music. I don't know music. I'm like, do people just steal people's... And he's like, dude, there is no such thing as an original chord. They've all been used. And they've all been used 1 million times. You know, it's so crazy to me as humans that we are so possessive of idea, of creation. Somebody asked me the other day if they could use my content, if they could react to it, or if they could use it. And I was like, yeah, use it. I'm happy that you use it. I'm not going to participate in all this dumbass YouTube drama. I don't want to be like Destiny and Vosh and Hasanabi, where you like fight with other streamers. I know that people want that, but I don't like that shit, man. I'm not. I grew up in a trailer park. I moved out. I'm not trying to be all that. If you want to use my stuff, use it. I mean, don't go post it wholesale on your site and claim it. But look, you want to be creative. You want to critique the stuff I do. You want to give your opinions on the things I'm giving opinions on. Do it, man. I'm for you. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. Just make good shit. It's crazy to me that we're so possessive. And it's almost counterproductive to the advancement of society to be so possessive of our own creations. I think it's good to be possessive and protective of your entire work, but for people to be inspired by you, that's a good thing. For people to see the things you do and say, wow, that's a great idea. I want to build off that. That's a great thing. It's insane that, anyways, the We was one of those books that I think it was H.G. Wells, it might have been Kurt Vonnegut, that heavily accused Aldous Huxley of stealing the work.
Author, but first published in New York. We details a time when humankind has decimated itself with weapons of mass destruction, and the final remaining enclave of civilization exists under the totalitarian domination of the benefactor.
Yeah.
Released?
Yeah. Unless that's the first book that wrote that. It is like 1 million books about that. Like every TV show that's been made in the last 2 years was about that topic. It's almost impossible to write a melody or chord progression that's new. I'm telling you, DJ, I'm not a musician. I didn't know that. That was kind of new to me. I didn't know. I'm like, damn, I'm always stunned by musicians. I hold you guys in the highest regard. I'm like, and when my warehouse guy told me, he's like, no, man, it's almost impossible to do that. I was like, wow, that blows my mind. I think of human creativity as being off the chart. And he's like, no, it's only so far you can go, big guy.
The very same year Stalin came to power, it imagines the extreme of top-down government. In it, every aspect of people's lives are regulated, from who they see every day to what time they go for walks. The police state surveils everyone, and the most basic deviation from what is set out by the benefactor is considered a crime. It's the first place that truly paints for us the horrifying possibility that rather than a freer, more liberated society, our advances will instead lead us to the logical conclusion of mechanism.
And it is trippy how we are going towards some of these things. But I almost feel like human beings are so trippy in the way that we feel we need to control everything. I talked about this, I think, on the last stream about how we define things. And that's why I don't want to say I'm a progressive or a left Democrat or a socialist or whatever you want to say. I want to be open to having my ideas change and become something different without always being pigeonholed into being something that everybody else wants to define. We have an obsession with control and we have a fear of control. And that's because we want to be the one in control. Whether it's in control of our own lives or for some of us, obviously, we feel the only way we can be in control of our lives is to control others' lives. I don't feel that way. I'm a manager, and I hate being in control, to be honest with you. I'd rather not be the manager. I like being in control of my stuff, and I like other people doing their own stuff so I can do my stuff. But somehow I get pigeonholed in being the person in charge all the time, every job I've ever been in. But we have this weird fascination with control. We want to be in control, so we define things and we put boundaries and fences on things. But then we fear being put within those boundaries and fences. It's a very strange polarization.
To the idea that human beings are simply parts of the giant machine of state, and collective effort will be warped into a homogenizing
This is
of
called
humanity
we. I don't know if
in order
that's...
to make
Oh,
us
is that
all
what it
more
is?
easily interchangeable parts.
Okay.
And this idea is echoed in the
Qui?
first great
Is it
English
Qui
dystopian
bucket?
novel, Brave New World. Here, though, it's taken even further, with a society that venerates Ford.
Yeah,
and the
that's
idea
really
of the
funny.
assembly line.
That's really funny. All right. I thought that was like probably one of my favorite parts of Brave New World was that they now worship Ford instead of God. And just kind of the fact that, like, you don't know. Coming into this, I didn't do any research on the book. In fact, I want to say maybe DJ or somebody actually suggested it in a stream once. I just saw somebody say it, and I was like, I'm going to read that now. By the way, guys, if you're watching this, if you have a book that you think was impactful in your life or you think is awesome, please put those books in the Discord, because I want to read them or I want to listen to them on audio. Audio is a lot easier for me nowadays. Key is how you pronounce the same. Okay, all right. Put those books in the Discord for me, because I want to. It's like a library, a library of music and movies and books. If you found something impactful in your life and you love it or you like it, or even if it's just entertaining, put it in the Discord. Even if nobody else reacts to it, I see everything you guys put in there, and I will eventually read it. It's a lot better than when people just put it in stream and go, hey, read this, and then I forget about it 5 minutes later. This is a part that I thought was really funny, though, was worshiping Ford. George Carlin has a nonfiction section. Yeah, I'll make it happen. DJ. George Carlin has a bit where he talks about worshiping the sun, and he's like, why would you worship? Well, I can see the sun. I can feel the sun. It has an actual effect on my life. Because, I just feel it makes more sense. And then, what did he say? He goes on to say, he worships Joe Pesci. He goes, because I pray to Joe Pesci and I pray to God, and it seems like Joe Pesci gets shit done at about the same clip as God does. So I pray to Joe Pesci because he gets shit done. And when I realized, I'm sitting there going, are they saying Ford as in Henry Ford? And that realization halfway through the book that, yeah, they're talking about Henry Ford. It's just one of those things I love about stories and creation, is that like connection of like, oh no shit, they are talking about Henry Ford. And the fact that it's like based off the assembly line, and that a culture literally could have been built off of the idea of the assembly line. Absolutely amazing.
In fact,
such a
years
great
are even
concept.
marked after Ford or before Ford, and people are born into specific castes.
And DJ, speaking of Ford, let's go Lions. Let's go Lions. All right? I'm going for a Lions-Ravens Super Bowl. That's what I'm going for this year.
Based on the work that the government believes they're physically and mentally cut out to do. Rooted in the growing understanding of psychology and pharmacology, Brave New World features a setting where everyone is conditioned from a young age to accept their role in society and to conform to its rules. And whenever this starts to feel oppressive, whenever someone begins to feel taboo emotions like sadness or depression, they're encouraged to take Soma, an opioid-like drug that helps suppress negative feelings and keep society orderly.
And I think we already do a lot of this kind of stuff. And I don't think people even like realize it. But it's like, I always tell my wife, I'm like, it's always best to drink when you're happy, not when you're sad. Like it's something to do as like celebration, not as a crutch. Because obviously alcoholism, very, very tough thing to deal with. And it's an insidious disease, whether it's, addiction as a whole, whether it's drugs or alcohol. But that's like my way of trying to make sure that when I'm drinking or when I used to smoke, that it wasn't used as a crutch, that it was always an incentive, a reward, a bonus to my happiness. But like that was the one thing about Brave New World that really stuck with me, was that like it was like, oh, bad shit's happening. Take a pill, And I do feel like our society is maybe a little too accepting of that. As much as I am for people using pharmaceuticals when it is necessary, I myself have been offered pharmaceuticals to take care of different things, and I've chosen to try to holistically handle my problems. But I will not say that I will never say that I will take an SSRI or something. If I need to, then I will. I have seen the positive effects of SSRIs, and I will continue to tell people that if that's what works for you, then do that. But really trippy in the way that Brave New World handles that question. Thank you, DJ. I probably should have taken some antidepressants. I probably should have started taking antidepressants at the 11th week of the Eagles season, to be honest with you. That's about when I should have started taking them. I saw it happening. I knew it was happening. I was telling all my friends, that's the worst defense in the NFL. Every coach on that team needs to be fired. I'm sorry, Nick Sirianni, but you got to go. All of them out the door. It's time to rebuild.
In the story, we follow two outsiders, a poet and a psychologist, who struggle with the constraints of this perfect and orderly world humanity has built. Eventually, in their travels, they come to a reservation, where the world government has set aside some land for people to live in the traditional way, with religion and disease and...
Okay, and I'm just saying, okay? I'm kind of okay with the Brave New World. I've already talked about sending the Trumpers to Jim Jones, okay, to Jonestown. So I might have already endorsed the Brave New World Society. I'm not going to say I'm against it. Let's just say I'm still open to it. Did I run over my TV? No, dude. I have a very strict policy of not breaking the shit that I own. I grew up extremely poor. I had nothing growing up. Zero. Nothing. So now I do not harm my electronics. I do not burn things. Nope. No jerseys went in a shredder. Nope. None of that. When my Eagles lose, it's usually because I knew they were going to lose anyways. I believe you want to talk about books. Dark Sun. It's a fantasy world called Dark Sun, and I think the book starts with always expect the worst, so that way all your surprises are good. I took that shit to heart. Okay.
Art and tragedy. And they bring back one of these, as they call them, savage human beings to their perfected society. As you can probably guess, this savage human being doesn't exactly integrate well, and they all end up getting hauled off before the resident world controller of Western Europe to face exile. And this is perhaps the most important part of the book, because it does something very few dystopian novels do. It presents an argument for the dystopia. While the resident world controller is called his Fordship and has books stamped with the famous Ford T, he's also one of the few people in society who knows of the world before the world state, who has read the old books and thought about the ways things used to be. In an exchange about why the society of Brave New World couldn't understand Othello, and why no modern work like it would ever be created, he says, "You can't make flivers without steel. And you can't make tragedies without social instability. Yeah. The world is stable now. People..."
It is such a crazy argument. It really is mind-blowing. And like I said, the funny thing about 1984 and the funny thing about Brave New World, and I'm going to guess that a lot of the literature of that time was kind of written this way, is probably the first 75% of the book is evidence. Like I said, it's almost difficult for me to read because I'm used to such like entertaining, like, what are they at? It's always in the commercials, a wild romp, a roller coaster ride, like that's all of our entertainment, all of our literature, all of our movies, all of our TV shows, even our music. It's very, very like roller coaster. If you can't, these YouTube videos, if you don't get somebody's attention and keep the attention from the beginning, you are screwed. You have no retention. You have to hook and then hook and then hook and then hook. These books do not do that. These books spend the first 75% of it, if not the first 80 or 90% of it, just laying down the pathway, just talking, just having a time, just showing you the world. And then when you get to the end of this book and it's presenting this argument, it's almost off-putting. you almost feel awkward or weird about why would this writer make this argument? And like I said, even a religious argument at some point, and the guy doesn't seem religious. And also, while reading A Brave New World, you're also kind of asking yourself, would I be okay with that society? It doesn't seem like there's a lot of cons to it. When you talk about the proletariat of 1984, as like a blue-collar person, you can understand why the proletariat is the proletariat. The idea that every day you just get up and you just work and you don't care, and like you've been beaten down and all your hope is in the lottery. And they even have, you want to talk about Israel Hamas, they even have the bombs dropping on the slums, on the proletariat. You know, and they're questioning whether it's their own government that does it, you know. Or some of them aren't, most of them aren't. But even in that, it's like kind of showing you this like reason for why it's bad to be the proletariat, why you should be hitting the end of your chain and bucking against the government control. Brave New World doesn't do that. Brave New World kind of goes, but what if they weren't punishing you? What if you weren't being watched every second? What if you were told, go have fun, go enjoy yourself? The only way you'd be punished is if you didn't. And that was such a amazing idea for a book. It really is worth a listen.
Well, they're happy. They get what they want, and they never want what they can't get. They're well off. They're safe. They're never ill, and they're not afraid of death. They're blissfully ignorant of passion and old age. They're plagued with...
That's another great argument. I've heard this when talking about UBI. Is what if people weren't afraid of death? What if you didn't feel like a motivation to be productive? And I think that the argument against UBI, shout out Legion Miller. I was just watching Legion Miller on UBI the other day. It's a great video. Check it out, Legion Miller, UBI. I think the argument against UBI is ridiculous. I don't think it's ever been proven. I think that there's a ton of examples and studies that have shown that people don't work less when getting more money. In fact, they work the same. They're just like, sick, now I've got more money to do stuff. I think human creativity would exist without the motivations of money. In fact, I know that it would, because obviously we've had human creativity since the beginning of humankind, since, you know, people were recording things on walls and caves. I think that's such a piss poor argument against UBI, is that people would just become lazy and wouldn't do work and wouldn't, you know, be creative, and you wouldn't have the art forms anymore. I think people need things to do. They need purpose. One of the problems with jobs, with being in the proletariat, is that most of those jobs don't provide purpose. But I was saying this the other day, is I have employees in retail that show up that love to be there. They love interacting with customers. And you might be saying, yeah, that's what you think. No, these are people, I have great employees, and I have good relationships with my employees. These are people that have literally told me, this is what I live for, is to come and talk to people and socialize and be engaged. These people are like my family. These customers really matter to me, and they really make my day better. Those people would still do that. Whether or not they're being paid or not, that's who they are as people. This is what they love to do. They love to interact. So it's a good question, is, so if you take away the fear of death, do you take away the want to accomplish? And I don't think you do, but that's a really good question.
With no mother or father, and they've no wives or children or lovers to feel strongly about. They're so conditioned that they practically can't help behaving as they ought to behave. And if anything should go wrong, there's Soma. The exchange continues with the savage saying, all the same, Othello's good. Othello's better than those Feelies. Feelies being the cheap sensory movies that they have in that Brave.
Can't wait for the Feelies, though.
The controller responds, of course it is. But that's the price
my
you have
suit.
to pay for stability. You've got to choose between happiness and what people used to call high art. We've sacrificed the high art. We have the Feelies and the scent organ instead.
And for this book, kind of, I'm telling you, because of the time it was written, it wavers between kind of, you know, a little bit of criticism of the left and also criticism of the right. Because, sorry, right wing, but when we talk about the dumbing down of society, I can't help but think about Republicans, okay? When I still remember, even going back in the day when I was younger, anything intellectual is criticized harshly by the majority of Republicans. I mean, you have some people like Shapiro, like Peterson, that are definitely more educated and intellectual people. But the majority of what you see, at least portrayed on the right, is you're talking down to me because you think you're smarter than me. All the colleges do nothing but promote progressivism. It's probably because progressivism is more of an intellectual thing. It's thinking about how to get people more equal rights, how to take care of really big things like climate change and change the government to be better for all, you know? And I feel like when he's talking about this and the feelies and getting rid of Othello because the people are too stupid to understand Othello, so why even have Othello, you know? I feel like that's like a criticism of the right, to be honest. Republicans cry about this concept saying everyone is going to make cupcakes. Yeah. No, exactly. Some people don't want to bake. And guess what? Some people love to fucking bake, and that's good because they make amazing fucking cupcakes, okay? And I don't even like sweets, but I'm going to eat those, okay? I eat good cupcakes. Yeah, it's an argument of the right that I just don't understand, is if you give people the means to survive, they won't do anything. I remember listening to Rogan back when I liked Rogan. I would listen to Rogan, and I thought he was wrong for this. And I was like, if people don't have to get up and go out and survive, then all they're going to do is sit at home and get fat. No, those people already do that. And they would do that without welfare. You think that there's countries out there that don't have welfare, that don't have a bunch of fucking fat people that don't do anything? They're everywhere. That's how it works. It's not... There are more motivations in life than just money. I'm telling you, like the reason that we look at money as such a motivational factor, and I'm not even shitting on money. I'm saying that it's because it's a central figure in our lives. If we got to a place, and I don't know, I'm not that smart, I'm not smart enough, but if we got to a place where we could incentivize people by saying, do what makes you happy, and you will be provided, and this is something that young people think more and more positively about. If the government can provide you with food, shelter, and the ability to do the things that you love to do freely, people aren't going to become less motivated to do things. They're still going to feel like they should do things. They still are going to feel like society needs to be taken care of. The very people making this content that is talking about people that would not be motivated to do anything would be some of the people that actually would do something. They would be people that get out and talk to people and say, hey, we just can't let society collapse. Come on, guys. Let's get out here and do shit. I mean, when you talk about libertarians, if you want to talk about the two ends of the spectrum that you think have nothing in common, you're talking socialism and libertarianism, they actually have one really big thing in common, and that is things will take care of themselves. They both believe that. Socialism just believes that you'll do it on a bigger community-based thing, and libertarian believes, well, you know, people are going to notice that the pothole needs to be fixed. I'll go out and fix the pothole because I don't want to drive on the street with pothole because it's going to fuck up my tires. Like I said, nuance in the conversations. Keep telling the overly pushy religious people that they worship the golden calf.
And the savage responds, it all seems to me quite horrible. And then the controller offers the central counter-argument in the book, saying, of course it does. Actual happiness always looks pretty squalid in comparison with overcompensations for misery. And of course, stability isn't nearly so spectacular as instability. And being contented has none of the glamour of a good fight against misfortune. None of the picturesqueness of a struggle with temptation, or a fatal overthrow by passion or doubt. Happiness is never grand. And that is what makes Brave New World the perfect opening salvo in the exploration of dystopias.
And also, like I said, a very good explanation of the if it leads or if it bleeds, it leads ideology of humankind and our voyeurism of punishment over reward. And that the book makes it a very good point. I don't know that it's the point it's trying to make, but that happiness is difficult. Happiness is working towards things and accepting, that not everything's perfect. Happiness is this ideal that exists that is incredibly hard to accomplish on a consistent basis. We find the gratification of seeing others punished because it makes us feel better that we're not the one being punished more appealing because it's simpler, it's easier. Now, people would say, well, you can accomplish happiness as in this book with Soma. But Soma is a drug that has no side effects. If you want to take SSRIs, generally there's all kinds of side effects. Lack of hunger, sexual repression, dysfunction. There's a couple other things, sleep issues, energy, those types of things, right? In Soma is kind of positioned as being this drug that doesn't have any side effects. You don't have any hangovers, all these things. It doesn't really exist in society. And as in a video we're about to watch, you'll hear Aldous Huxley actually say that he doesn't believe it ever will exist.
Because it asks the question, how do we get there? How would a modern society ever actually become a dystopia? Sometimes it's through raw greed or lust for power. But equally as often, it's through people thinking they know the best way for humanity to live and trying to impose that vision on all of us. And it also forces us to ask ourselves, are truth and beauty bought with suffering? And if so, are they worth it? Are those the things that really make us human? And if we mill them out of our existence, do we give up the most fundamental, the most noble part of what we are? Or are we, those of us who desire liberty, greedy, forcing the less fortunate to suffer so that we may have our freedoms? And are those the only two options? Is there a third path? While Brave New World leaves this question open, join us next time for an author who feels like he has a pretty definitive answer as we talk about 1984.
Oh, nice. That's cool. We should watch that, but I already decided what this stream was about. So I want to go back to something. Did I already kill the Wikipedia? I did. He says in the Wikipedia something that I came out with after reading the book. After reading a book or after finishing an audiobook, I like to turn it off and I like to sit there and I think about what I got from it, right? And I thought what I got from that is the same thing I've gotten from almost everything in my life. And that is the answer is almost always somewhere in the middle. It's about balance. It's about understanding that things will never be a utopia, but you never want them to be a dystopia, right? And there is one thing that is possible, that is achievable, and that is dystopia. Who did I hear the other day say something about murdering people? Oh, it was Ruby. Classic Ruby on Grey Pill's show. Said, if you want to murder 5 people, you can. There's just repercussions for it. And that's actually a really valid point. People don't understand one of the things about police officers and the law is the law generally can't do anything about the things you want to do until you've done them, unless there's some kind of evidence that you were going to do them. I'm looking at Donald Trump. So you can achieve dystopia, and achieving utopia isn't really probable, or at least plausible, right? So, like, the middle ground to that is that through enough vigilance, we can keep ourselves from achieving dystopia. Like, we can achieve not becoming idiocracy, right? We can achieve that through vigilance. And that's what we're doing. That's why we're here today. We can achieve staying out of dystopia and still thrive strive for utopia. And that, I think, is what we get from a book like A Brave New World, is this idea that is the noble thing to do is to strive to eliminate adversity, to strive for equality for all human beings, regardless of sex, gender, age, ethnicity. That's why I agree with progressive values so much, right? I think that the nobility is in the fact that happiness is hard. I think nobility is in the fact that there is no magic pill like Soma that will make people happy. And I think the nobility is that you're taking a route that is adverse to the easier route of just achieving the dystopia. I think things like religion cheapen that because they give you reasoning. I think that things like religion cheapen that because they give you excuses. And I think when we talk about being like actual human beings and recognizing that, you know, we are the angels and devils of our nature, that we have to have a balance. And that's what I got. That's what I got. Yeah, DJ, tonight's a slow night, huh? That's okay. I do it if there's 0 people out there, but you know, I'm happy you two are here. You guys always make it better. So I'm glad someone listens to me. But it's gonna take more than 3 of us. It just might take years to get there. Okay? Wait, we're Sith? Nope. Bucket, no. Bucket, no. Ah, shit. All right, fine. There's only 3 of us. We might as well go Sith. It's okay. So, I wanted to watch this because I actually have already watched this, but I wanted to watch this with other people, and even if there's only 2 of us, I'm going to watch it with you too. So, this is Aldous Huxley talking to Mike Wallace, and this was so interesting. So, and somebody colorized this one. I don't know if this is going to be better than the black and white one, but it's a 28-minute long one, so we'll watch a bit of it, but it had some really, really interesting questions in this. Some awesome questions in it.
This is Aldous Huxley, a man haunted by a vision of hell on earth. A searing social critic, Mr. Huxley, 27 years ago, wrote Brave New World, a novel that predicted that someday the entire world would live under a frightful dictatorship. Today, Mr. Huxley says that his fictional world of horror is probably just around the corner for all of us. We'll find out why in a moment.
The Mike Wallace Interview, presented by the American Broadcasting Company in association with the Fund for the Republic, brings you a special television series discussing the problems of survival and freedom in America.
Love the old stuff right now.
Good evening, I'm Mike Wallace. Tonight's guest, Aldous Huxley, is a man of letters, as disturbing as he is distinguished.
Okay, hold on.
Born in England.
Isn't it weird to see somebody smoking a cigarette on TV? That is... I don't know if you guys worked in any type of like public type of retail or anything when this happened, but in California, when they said people couldn't smoke cigarettes inside anymore, I worked at a 7-Eleven, and I remember the first time a guy walked through the door smoking a cigarette, and I was like, "Hey, buddy, you can't smoke that in here," and he's like, "What? Fuck you!" And I'm like, "No, I mean literally, bro, you can't smoke a cigarette in here. It's against the law." And dude had to like. He's like, went outside and fucking smoked, fucking rammed it in the ashtray. You gotta be kidding me. And speaking of nowadays, it was the same mentality. First they take away our right to smoke cigarettes and give people secondhand cancer. Next thing you know, you're working in the coal mine. Wait, most of those people probably worked in coal mines.
Now a resident of California, Mr. Huxley has written some of the most electric novels in social criticism of this century. He's just finished a series of essays called Enemies of Freedom, in which he outlines and defines some of the threats to our freedom in the United States. And Mr. Huxley, right off the bat, let me ask you this. As you see it, who and what are the enemies of freedom here in the United States?
Well, I don't think you can say who in the United States. I don't think there are any sinister persons deliberately trying to rob people of their freedom. But I do think, first of all, that there are a number of impersonal forces which are pushing in the direction of less and less freedom. And I also think that there are a number of technological devices which anybody who wishes to use can use to accelerate this process of going away from freedom, of imposing control.
Well, what are these forces and these devices?
Isn't that such a trippy thing to say too? Because it's like so applicable to today, but obviously he's not talking about the internet or anything like that. Yeah, he's talking about radio and TV, and it's like the narrative just kind of continues, right? Like it just changes from radio and TV now to the internet, like and phones and social media. It's so trippy how you can watch something like that and you're almost like jumping ahead of him. You're like, oh, he's going to say the internet. And then you like recognize, oh shit, this guy doesn't even know about the internet. Really trippy, right? Hey, what's up, Golf? Thanks for stopping in, buddy.
I should say that there are two
We're doing something a little different
main
tonight.
impersonal forces. The first of them is not exceedingly important in the United States at the present time, though very important in other countries. This is the force which in general terms can be called overpopulation.
There's another thing from this that kind of tripped me out. Him talking about overpopulation. So this is something I keep talking about with my wife and stuff, is seeing Elon Musk like really into the whole population thing, and how he keeps talking about how the America or the Western world and is depopulating and blah 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 and all this stuff. And I go, it's not a question of whether or not that's good for humanity. It's a question of whether or not it's good for the economy. So when you talk about somebody like Elon Musk, he has a very a very high investment in the proletariat, right? We're the ones going to get his ass to Mars. So he needs as many people reproducing as possible because he can't achieve his dreams without us doing the work for him, getting his ass to Mars. So when you hear somebody saying something like, oh, there's too many people, not enough people, and people aren't having the traditional family, and you're losing all that stuff, it's not a question about whether or not that's good for humanity, because at one point or another in human history, we were down to something like I think it's 40 mated pairs, and somehow, just like cockroaches, we just came right back from that, okay? So that's not the question. The question isn't, is it good for humanity? The question is it good for the economy? And obviously, when you talk about things like Social Security, which is really a top-heavy social structure, that's when you start to talk about whether or not something like that could collapse due to, not having younger people. But that's also when we would start to talk about things like immigration, which shows that Elon Musk is full of shit, because Elon Musk does nothing but talk about immigrants coming into the country 24/7 on X nowadays. 24/7 he's posting numbers. Isn't this crazy? This shouldn't be legal. Are they trying to use it to get votes? And he's just kind of mask off right now. And I'm really upset about that, because I liked Elon. Elon Musk and Joe Rogan disappointing me so much nowadays. And I can tell you this, that as far as population goes, immigration coming into the country illegally or legally is actually a huge boon for us. Because yes, I want everybody to come here legally. No, I don't want people to come here illegally. No, I don't want people that are actual terrorists and criminals coming into the country undetected. But I also look at the statistics of the situation, and if I'm seeing that immigrants commit crimes at half the rate as legal citizens, first of all, I want to know whether or not it's even a fucking factor. Second, I grew up in an area where illegal immigrants were taken advantage of and used for the worst jobs in America, telling me that these people aren't taking American jobs or taking your kid's place in school or stealing food off your table. All these exaggeration and fear is bullshit. So I have to ask myself, is it the worst thing that is happening? Probably fucking not, okay? So fuck Elon Musk. All he wants is a strong proletariat to keep your ass working and building the fucking parts he needs to get himself to Mars. That's all he wants, man. He has the emotional maturity of a zygote. Exactly, Golf. So, I just have to say this. Him bringing up the question of overpopulation, once again, like I said, these writers are prescient. They see what's going to happen because they're writing about it, they're imagining it, they're creating. His point of view on the world at this time in 1958 was that we're seeing in other countries overpopulation. And if we look at what's going on in today's society, it is a clear symptom of overpopulation. We have a lot of fucking people with a lot of different ideas, a lot of different points of views, and this is causing a really extreme polarization in not just our society, but in the world society. When there are too many of us, there is too many options, and there are too many viewpoints, and we have a hard time actually getting together and solving problems. Like Bill Burr said, 85% of you motherfuckers gotta go. The king of the gingers has spoken. So that's like, I thought that was such a cool thing to hear, like such a sensible idea from a guy to go, actually, if you guys want to be honest about this, y'all are populating too much. You're having a little too much fun in the bedroom. Put a Jimmy on it. Yeah, no, golf is not new. But yeah, oh, DJ meant new to the chat. No, golf has been around. Golf's been around. Yeah, if your name is, do you think that's his real name, DJ? Aldous Huxley definitely sounds like I'm going linebacker. All right.
Pressure of population pressing upon existing resources. This, of course, is an extraordinary thing. Something is happening which has never happened in the world's history before. I mean, let's just take a simple fact that between the time of the birth of Christ and the landing of the Mayflower, the population of the Earth doubled. It rose from 250 million to probably 500 million.
Yeah, and that's
Today,
almost
the
the population of
the
America
Earth
now.
is rising at such a rate that it will double in half a century.
Well, why should overpopulation work to diminish our freedoms?
Well, in a number of ways. I mean, the experts in the field, like Harrison Brown, for example, pointed out that in the underdeveloped countries, actually the standard of living is at present falling, that people have less to eat and less goods per capita.
And that's because of the gap, the wealth gap. Like, we all know that the wealth gap has not closed. It's only grown bigger and bigger. And if you even have half a brain, if you have 10% of a brain, you should be able to figure out that that's not going to change for the positive without some real, like, infrastructure. A complete overhaul. You're not going to change things. Look, I'm a big supporter of capitalism, okay? I came out of the gutter and I got to where I am all due to my ability to find a place in society where I can use my intelligence, my hard work, my ethic to get to where I am now. But I am not a person that believes just because something got me somewhere that means it's good for everybody. And when we look at things like the infrastructure that has accomplished what it has in capitalism, we see that the wealth gap continues to get larger and larger. And somebody said the other day, very, very intelligent person said the other day, you are closer, this is Legia Miller, you are closer to becoming destitute than you ever will to being rich. Everybody thinks they're one smart idea away from being Elon Musk. But the reality of the situation is you're actually like only 2 steps away from being completely destitute, bankrupt, and living in a trailer in northern Nebraska. Is northern Nebraska bad? I just made that up off the top of my head. I don't know if northern Nebraska... Sorry if you live in northern Nebraska and that's where the rich people live. Actually, not sorry. Fuck rich people. But I think that when you talk about overpopulation, like he's talking about, and the fact that you see people that are becoming more destitute and there's less resources, that's because the people on the wealthy side are hoarding the said resources, and the fact that people on the Republican side are constantly standing for rich, white, wealthy people while they live in a trailer park is absolutely fucking insane. What are we doing? I remember being that person. I'm from the trailer park. I was one of those people. I was one of the people that if you asked, well, what do you think about Elon Musk? I go, well, he's really smart. Well, why is he really smart? Because he has a lot of money. And as I got older and I got wiser and I got to see the rules to the game, I was like, you know what? Being a billionaire, actually, it's not illegal, but it is immoral. Like, you can accept both of those factors. You can say, sure, we can't make a law against it, but it is fucking immoral. If you can walk past homeless people on the street, if you can get on the internet and complain about homeless people and the homeless populations, all while building rockets and having the most money out of any human on the entire earth, you're immoral. That's just the honest truth of the situation. I'm not saying it should be illegal. I'm just saying you are immoral. Socialism only works if there's a smaller population. Fascism flourishes in an overpopulation. Socialism only works if there's a smaller... I don't know that we're going to find out. I'll let him make his own point there because I interrupted the man. My thoughts on that. I want to think about that myself. Capitalism has cycles, must be tempered periodically. Yeah, and you know, when you talk about Marxism talks about, what is it? Capitalism turns into socialism, socialism turns into communism. I don't know that that's the truth, and I'm not advocating for communism at all, just so everybody knows. There are certain passive government that I think have shown some real issues with being successful. Communism, an idea, taking, you know, the property, the means of production and putting it in the hands of the workers sounds great. Doesn't seem to work out so well. Capitalism seems to work out pretty well on a broader spectrum. Socialism, I think we're going to see the institution. My personal opinion, because we see how progressive and socialist young people are, I think we're going to see, maybe not in our lifetime, but at one point, humanity, I think specifically in America, will see a socialist cycle. How that will work out is a very good question. And I don't know whether or not I want to be alive for that. But it is a great question as to whether or not it will be successful. Because I do think late stage capitalism will turn into a form of socialism because of how socialists our young people are today. Human overpopulation is taxing the ecosystem, oceans. Exactly. Yeah, hit my windshield, DJ, like one every like 6 weeks. Like, yeah. That's actually a very good point, DJ. Yeah, he goes into this, but I think that's something that we stopped talking about recently. We started talking about all this dumb shit. Trump has completely like taken away all the attention. He literally sucks the air out of the room, man. All the attention has gone to Trump. We're not even talking about things like resources like drinkable water, about clean air anymore. These are all things that are going to become increasingly important if we talk about population. If we want people to go back to the traditional family, if we want people to keep having kids, then we damn well better start solving all these environmental issues. Because at one point or another, even people in America are going to have a hard time finding drinkable water. If we don't start talking about desalinization, if we don't start talking about recycling, if we don't start talking about things that actually will produce positive results in the environment for the future, then it doesn't do any good to keep having children. I have children. I love mine. Exactly. That's a great point, DJ. We're going to be looking that up on a stream. Yeah. Oh, it is winter though. No, but I have to point out, Bucket, anecdotally speaking, even during the summer, I have not had any real insect splats. The trees, the pollen from the trees all over my windshield. Bugs, I haven't had any bugs.
Than they had 50 years ago. And as the position of these countries, the economic position, becomes more and more precarious, obviously the central government has to take over more and more responsibility for keeping the ship of state on an even keel. And then, of course, you're likely to get social...
So a little bit of what you're saying there, Bucket, I think he's actually saying that the larger the population gets, the more likely to become socialist it is.
Rest under such conditions, with again an intervention of the central government. So I think one sees here a pattern which seems to be pushing very strongly towards a totalitarian regime. And unfortunately, as in all these underdeveloped countries, the only highly organized political party is the Communist Party, it looks rather as though they will be the heirs to this unfortunate process, that they will step into the power.
So actually, once again, very funny of him to say that, because when you talk about these like rich, super wealthy people pushing for the population to get bigger and bigger, when you have somebody as intelligent as somebody like Aldous Huxley, somebody as forward thinking as Aldous Huxley, and he's sitting there telling you that the bigger society gets, the more control that the government's going to need over society, you start to ask yourself, did Elon Musk read Brave New World? Did he watch this interview? Has he been pushing for population to get larger because he is well positioned financially to find himself in a place where a totalitarian government speaks to him as a person, works for him? These are fucking great questions. Isaac Asimov. DJ, do you know the whole story of Isaac Asimov and L. Ron Hubbard, where they believe that L. Ron Hubbard started Scientology on a bet with Isaac Asimov because he said that he could get people to believe in a religion, and then he just kind of ran with it? I don't know if you know that story, but it's a great story. We should watch that sometime.
Position of power.
Well, then, ironically enough, one of the greatest forces against communism in the world, the Catholic
we should
Church,
look that up on stream.
according to your thesis, would seem to be pushing us directly into the hands of the communists because they are against birth control.
Well, I think this strange paradox probably is true. There is it's an extraordinary situation, actually. I mean, one has to look at it, of course, from a biological point of view. The whole essence of biological life on Earth is a question of balance, and what we have done is to practice death control in a most intensive manner.
I'm telling you, this whole interview is great points. He talks about death control. So if you know who Steven Pinker is a sociologist, and he has a book called The Enlightenment, which talks about the Enlightenment of the 1800s, in which, you know, we went away from the idea that hurricanes or you don't have a tornado because people are gay, bro. That's not reality. And in the 1800s, you know, people became bigger thinkers, more science-minded. And since the 1800s, obviously, we entered the age of sanitation. And, you know, like, even though Republicans have fought against every single one of these things, which is highly ironic, being the pro-life people, seatbelts, no drunk driving, all of these things have made society safer and safer. Therefore, we actually have this, like, aging population that lives longer, but we don't have resources to take care of this population. So it's creating this real conundrum with, where is it acceptable to draw the line? What do we do about that? If we're going to all live longer, I've heard people say that in my child's lifetime that people will possibly live as long as 150 years old due to advancements in science. So if people are going to live to be 150 years old, let's say that that's what's happening. Let's say that by the time you're like 130, you're still like my shape, right? Like that's middle age by then, right? How do you make a society that survives? How do you have a government that controls that society? And I'm using that word loosely for all the fucking religious right-wingers that probably just fucking shit all over themselves. I mean controls as in keeps things within the boundaries of being civilized. How do you do that? If we're going to continue to populate, if we're going to continue to do the traditional family system of having 2 kids and everybody continues to have children, how do you manage those resources? To me, that's mind-boggling hard to figure out.
Without balancing this with the birth control at the other end, consequently the birth rates remain as high as they were, and death rates have fallen substantially.
All right, then, so much for the time being anyway for overpopulation. Another force that is diminishing our freedoms.
Well, another force which I think is very strongly operative in this country is the force of what may be called over-organization. As technology becomes more and more complicated, it becomes necessary to have more and more elaborate organizations, more hierarchical organizations, And incidentally, the advance of technology has been accompanied by an advance in the science of organization. It's now possible to make organizations on a larger scale than was ever possible before. And so that you have more and more people living their lives out as subordinates in these hierarchical systems controlled by bureaucracies, either the bureaucracies of big business or the bureaucracies of big government.
And I think in our society, those big groupings that he's talking about are your Democrat and Republican. I think that what you're seeing with young people is this bucking of wanting to be a part of these huge organizations. And I would say that even speaks a little to the internet and forums and how it's brought us together as people and created these large amalgamations of ideologies in the conspiracy realm. When you talk about people that, you know, are flat earth, that also are willing to go into, you know, some of the QAnon stuff, you create these big societies that have hierarchical themes. You have, I believe in the QAnon thing is called finding the crumbs. And that is like, everybody is a baker. Everybody finds crumbs. And that's going to get the evidence that these things are happening in the deep state and all that stuff, and then bringing it back and giving it to the baker. And the baker makes the cake. And the cake is the conspiracy. So you could even say that, like, that's really prescient of him to have seen that organization is actually a real form of control. That when you have these groups that are putting all these people into subordinate positions, that you're kind of creating a real problem. And I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing right now.
Now, the devices that you were talking about, are there specific devices or methods of communication which diminish our freedoms in addition to overpopulation and over-organization?
Well, there are certainly devices which can be used in this way. I mean, let us take, after all, a piece of very recent and very painful history is the propaganda used by Hitler, which was incredibly effective. I mean, what were Hitler's methods? Hitler used terror on the one kind, brute force on the one hand, but he also used a very efficient form of propaganda, which he was using every modern device at that time. He didn't have TV, but he had the radio, which he used to the fullest extent, and was able to impose his will on an immense mass of people. I mean, the Germans were a highly educated people.
Well, we're aware of all this, but how do you equate Hitler's use of propaganda with the way that propaganda, if you will, is used, let us say, here in the United States? Are you suggesting that there is a parallel?
Needless to say, it's not being used in this way now. But the point is, it seems to me, that...
And you like how he said that? Needless to say, it's not being used in that way now. But here we are, you forward almost 70 years, 65 years, and you start to look at what you're seeing coming out of all political organizations. Propaganda is, you know, it's a very... it's a negative word, but it's also a definitive word, right? Like, it means something, and that does mean that it's reaching out to people to help people believe a certain narrative. And you see it on the right, you see it on the left, you see it in commercials. You know, like the use of propaganda to stir or steer the narrative in the direction that people want it to, with the use of the internet, is actually really, really scary. It's actually one of those things that, like, when I watch something, even when it comes out from the left, right? What was the thing that came out today? We might have time to watch this today. The thing about Roger Stone. Roger Stone allegedly said that Swalwell and who's the other politician would need to be offed before the election to set an example. Now, he says that wasn't him on tape. In fact, he's even using the excuse that it was AI created. But when I hear that, even though I'm constantly talking trash about Trump, even though I'm very progressive in my values, the first thing I think is that real? Am I sure that wasn't taken out of context? Did he say those words, or did he say words that were similar that could be kind of construed as it being that? And then I go and watch it, and it turns out dude said some pretty bad stuff, actually. And I'm pretty sure if that is actually him who said that. Yeah, he was trying to get people assassinated, allegedly. It seems that way, right? But it's such a fucking prescient thing for him to say. To be so forward-thinking, to think in a time where TV was pretty new. This is actually black and white, just so you guys know. This was colorized by this guy. It's actually black and white. And to know how Hitler used the radio and to say, one day, these things could be used in a much worse way. And I think we're living through that right now. When you see, what was it? There's that congressman the other day that was saying that immigrants are wearing cardboard with numbers on it to vote. And it's clearly untrue. You have the ability to look it up on your computer. You're sitting at it generally when this is happening. Maybe not for the older crowd. Maybe they're watching it on Fox News. And yet that drives the narrative that, oh, that's what's going on. It's kind of insane. Yeah, the negative connotation of propaganda implies that it's based on lies. Yeah, so but I say this about words, like we have to be careful because I've heard people say, use word, and then people go, well, of course propaganda is bad. Well, not always. The negative connotation of it that you're implying that it's lying is bad. Using it for control could be bad. If you were to say you're using it to educate people, which obviously is what somebody that would be lying would also do, then it may be good. This is the problem with definitions and the problem with words and getting semantically entrenched in what they mean and immediately applying connotations to them, is that sometimes you can misunderstand what is being said. And so that's why, like I said, I try to, when I'm listening to people, I try to listen to understand, not listen to reply. And that includes oftentimes attempting to understand the context of what they're using a word for.
At present available method superior in some respects to Hitler's method, which could
lies
be used
or miseducation.
in a bad
Yes, I agree with that.
situation. I mean,
yeah.
What I feel very strongly is that...
And just so you know, Golf, I believe on the left and the right that is a problem. Like I said before, I used to come home and, my wife would go, did you hear Trump said this? And I go, hold on, let's look it up. And I'd go and I'd look and I get so mad because I would say, you don't need to make up shit for Donald Trump. You don't need to take the stuff he says out of context. You can just use the things he says, because there's plenty of shit that he says that are stupid and ridiculous. Lately, he's been using Nikki Haley's name as like a way to, in my opinion, dog whistle the people in his party that he knows are racist. And I used to hate that shit. I used to say, don't say that. But when you hear him intentionally use Barack Obama's middle name, when you hear him intentionally use Nikki Haley's given name, you do have to recognize that what he is doing is dog whistling racist people, saying, that these are foreigners. And I don't know if that he's doing it because he's racist, or if he's doing that because he knows the people that follow him are racist. Or I don't know if that even matters. They could both be the same. But I think even when the left does it, it drives me fucking nuts. Do not quote people out of context. Do not misinterpret what people are saying. Just tell us what it is. Because I just said this on one of my shorts the other day, is if people on the right, if I was on the right and the Republicans on the right thought I was stupid enough to vote for Lauren Boebert, I would be incensed that they thought I was that dumb, that I was that uneducated. It would piss me off so much. And when the left does that by taking things out of context or misinterpreting things, that incenses me as well, because I do feel like I'm intelligent enough that if you can speak to me in a way and talk to me, and that what you're saying is true and good, that we will meet in the middle and we will understand each other. So whether it's on the left or the right, if you are using propaganda in a way to miseducate people and lie to them, that really irritates me.
We mustn't be
no need to make it up, Bucket.
By our own advancing technology. This has happened again and again in history. Technology has advanced, and this changes social conditions, and suddenly people have found themselves in a situation which they didn't foresee and doing all sorts of things they didn't really want to do.
Well, now, what do you mean? Do you mean that we develop our television, but we don't know how to use it correctly? Is that the point that you're making?
Well,
dude, what a point that is that you can apply to the internet. That the internet is good, but we don't know how to use it yet. You could take almost everything these guys are saying and apply it to our technology nowadays. It's crazy.
At present, the television, I think, is being used quite harmlessly. It's being used, I think, I would feel it's being used too much to distract everybody all the time. But, I mean, imagine, which must be the situation in all communist countries, where the television, where it exists, is always saying the same thing the whole time, is always driving along. It's not...
Yeah. And that's a really good point. And obviously that's something you see in 1984, right? And you also see it in, he uses it in his book too, in Brave New World. When people get out of control, the nice calm voice comes on and tells you, why are you mad? Don't be mad. Take a tab. Fully agree, but the rest of the stupid ambiguous stuff is as bad as lies. I could never equate the left and the right. Yeah, I agree with all that, Golf. What I'm saying when I say that the left does it is that I think that what the left does, I think the left understands that they have an educated crowd, and they try to play little games of like, come on, you want to agree with this? Come on, it's pretty close to the truth. And I'm like, I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't want, like, I'm all good for jokes and making fun of motherfuckers and mocking people, and all that shit doesn't have to be completely spot on. You know, you can have a little fun with that kind of stuff. But I wish at times that the left would be a little bit better. This is what happened with Hillary. I wish they'd be a little bit better with treating constituents like grown-ups. Like that's one of my things. I think on the right, they fully understand who their people are. I think they fully understand that they can say anything they want, and that goes along with what this guy's about to say. So Donald Trump every time says the same things every time. I made that video about keywords, crooked Joe Biden, mutilating children, like all that stuff that he says every single time, that DeSantis says every single time, that Vivek says every single time. Like, when you hear Democratic candidates get up on the stage, they have similar talking points, but they generally don't say things in the same exact way. They all have like kind of a nuanced point of view on how they like to talk about it. But, and even the Republicans, to be honest with you, the Republicans 10 years ago also, though they parroted a lot of the same ideas, tried to have their own nuanced takes on it. But when you come to where the far right is nowadays, the far right literally says the same things, because it's almost like YouTube. It's almost like knowing what keywords to put in your tags, what keywords to put in your title, what keywords to use as hashtags. It's like, as long as you say the same things, you'll just be as popular as everybody else. That's why I suck. Because I don't want to be a part of all that. I know it's part of the game. I know that's how you have to participate if you want to be successful. But I want to be authentic. I don't want to be a fucking another person saying the same shit. I want to be a person that gets to say the things that I believe, not the things that are going to make me popular. I'm going to rant about that quite a bit tonight. I think propaganda can just be spinning the facts. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, DJ, is sometimes on the left, I get irritated when the left does not think that we're smart enough to understand things without changing them just minutely enough to kind of make them controversial. Or, you know, like I said, I am also at the same time complaining that, you know, I don't have 1 million viewers because I won't put, you know, bloody fights this week, just like Bucket was saying. So it's a real game. I've been talking to this YouTube coach about this. That's right, I have a coach now. But I've been talking to him, and, you know, I feel for him because, You know, he's gone, hey, like, these are the things you do to be successful. And I'm going, I don't want to put fucking controversial shit in my fucking title. I don't want to have to be somebody I'm not. And he's going, yeah, cool. Like, I like that about you. That's good. That's good. Be you, you know, but I can just feel on the inside, he's gone, dude, I'm never going to be able to help this kid become successful. I'm calling myself a kid. That's how much I'm looking down on my own mentality right now. He's over there going like, sweet Jesus, I'm trying to tell this guy how to do it, and he's just over there going, yeah, but I don't want to sell out. Be the person who chucks the boss at the TV. You know, I don't know if that's in my future, but it might happen. It might be in my future. We're gonna see how long. This is an experiment for you guys. How long I can hold out before you guys finally see like a semi-topless chick in my YouTube thumbnails. How long can the angry ginger hold out? Yeah, it's a thing, DJ. It's a thing. Like I paid for an analytics package to just look at my my keywords and all that stuff, and just to see, because you guys see how much hate mail I get on my shorts and stuff. I'm like, I'm messing up something, because all I'm doing is bringing in angry Trump supporters that just want to tell me to off myself and call me all the worst names. I was like, there's got to be something to that. Like, what am I messing up? So I bought an analytics package to look at all the numbers. Plus, that's what I do, is I do analysis. So I really like numbers, and I love charts and stuff. So I was like, this would be cool. And there was an option to upgrade where I could talk to a person. And I was like, you know what? I want to do that. And so I got it. It's not as cringe as it sounds. The dude is really cool. And he really is just trying to help my ass. But I feel so bad for him, because I'm like, but I want to be me. Tempting a reference to some commercial from way back. I don't think I know that commercial, but chucking stuff at a TV does get a lot of views. I'm just going to say that. I just thought you were talking about the fact that like Dallas Cowboys fans break their TVs every year. How many years in a row have the Dallas Cowboys lost in the playoffs, DJ? How many TVs? That's a good statistic right there. How many TVs have Dallas Cowboys fans broke in the last 20 years? I'm going to say 20. I'm going to say 25, because they probably broken a few during the regular season too. Also, yeah, don't feel bad for me. Don't feel bad. I shouldn't feel bad for my coach. No, I feel for that dude. I am a fucking handful. You guys know this.
Creating a wide front of distraction. It's creating a one-pointed drumming in of a single idea all the time.
Single point of view.
Powerful instrument.
So you're talking about the potential misuse of the instrument.
Exactly. We have, after all technology is in itself morally neutral. These are just powers which can either be used well or ill.
Yeah, I do feel bad for my wife.
With atomic energy, we can either use it to blow ourselves up, or we
DJ, we don't admit things like that.
As a substitute for the coal and the oil, which are running out.
You've even written about the use of drugs in this light.
Well, now, this is a very interesting subject. I mean, in this book that you mentioned,
I really like that they talk about this, because if you watch the John Padora podcast, he mentions the Portugal method of drug legalization from top to bottom. And I am a proponent of legalization of drugs, because I think that even the harder drugs should be legalized, because when you legalize things, it does seem like you see things becoming less and less of an issue. I think that that's due to education. I think that's due to the ability to openly and honestly talk about these things. I think that it's extremely hypocritical here in America to talk about freedoms and liberties and then put people in jail for things like marijuana and mushrooms. We can talk about whether or not, as we do with alcohol and tobacco, whether or not it's appropriate for children to be, put in positions where these things are available to them. Back in my day, cigarettes were kept at a very low position where children could see them, and I was not agreeable with that in any way. There, in the same way, I would want to see regulation when it comes to harder drugs, but I don't think that they should be illegal. So I wanted to see his point of view on this really badly, because in the book, it uses soma as an example of a cope, and I do think that drugs and alcohol are a crutch. but I disagreed to the point of the fact that they would be so overly accepted. But once again, he's also using Soma as being a drug that has 0 side effects. You don't have any regrets from taking it, and that drug does not currently exist.
Of mine, Brave New World, I postulated a substance called Soma, which was a very versatile drug. It would make people feel happy in small doses. It would make them see visions in medium doses, and it would send them to sleep in large doses. Well, I don't think such a drug exists now, nor do I think it will ever exist, but we do have drugs which will do some of these things, and I think it's quite on the cards that we may have drugs which will profoundly change our mental states without doing us any harm. I mean, this is the pharmacological revolution which has taken place, that we have now powerful mind-changing drugs which, physiologically speaking, are almost costless. I mean, they are not like opium or like cocaine, which do change the state of mind, but leave terrible results physiologically and morally.
Mr. Huxley, in your new essays, you state that...
And so there, I think he is saying that he agrees that the existence of mind-altering drugs that are beneficial is a good thing. So I thought that was really cool to hear, because I did feel that there was a negative connotation in Brave New World about SSRIs and in their use. And this is one of the problems with obviously seeing somebody else's creation and attempting to like analyze and contextualize what they're talking about. So I thought that was really cool to hear him say that in the future you may see these drugs. And once again, how good was this dude? Like, he saw the existence of SSRIs, 60 years in the future. That's pretty crazy.
That these various enemies of freedom are pushing us toward a real-life brave new world.
Was it Huey Lewis looking for the power of love, DJ?
First of all, can you detail for us what life in this brave new world which you fear so much, or what life might be like?
Well, to start with, I think this kind of the dictatorship of the future, I think will be very unlike the dictatorships which we've been familiar with in the immediate past. I mean, take another book prophesying the future, which was a very remarkable book, George Orwell's 1984. But this book was written at the height of the Stalinist regime and just after the Hitler regime.
The rest of this interview is actually super fucking interesting, but we have a special treat on tap that I have not watched, and I wanted to watch it with you guys. And because DJ, Bucket, and my wife are here, I have the best people here, okay? So we're going to watch this, and everybody else is going to lose out on this one. Yeah, a new drug. Dude, the new drugs are just worse, DJ. They're sucking. Or is that a Huey Lewis song? All the new drugs suck. The fucking trank and fentanyl. Like, dude, we just fell off the map on what we were like. We went from the 60s and 70s of like free love and fucking LSD to freaking trank and fentanyl and a bunch of people getting mad at each other for having sex. Humanity's failing. All right, special treat. We're not going to get to the rest of these ones because I guess I just turned this into a pretty much just a Brave New World live stream, which I'm completely okay. This has been very therapeutic for me, guys. I need a book club. Yeah, bath salts. Dude, oh God, I should play that song for you. Okay, DJ, remind me of the bath salt song. We're going to play that at the end of this show, okay? We're going to play the bath salt song at the end of this live stream. But this has been very therapeutic for me because I don't get to talk to people about books, okay? And you guys, though not forced to be here, you guys can leave at any time. I appreciate you guys for being here. But almost every time I want to talk to somebody about a book I read, they're like, okay, bro, enough. I get it. You think that this book had something to do with the collapse of society. Good for you, guy. No. I want to talk about it, though. I've thought about starting a channel. If this channel fails, guys, If my YouTube coach if he can't dig me out of this hole. Stay tuned for my book channel, okay? Dude, I'm going to drive him nuts by probably starting to do book reviews next, and he's going to be like, bro, like, what are you doing? Please stop. And I'm going to be like, I can't stop. Book reviews coming soon. Maybe I'll put that on the Patreon. One of the things I want to do is, because I have to make some money at some point, is I want to do a $1 Patreon where people pay $1 and we'll watch like the crazy videos from like Channel 5, Andrew Callahan, that I can't put on YouTube because they're all like insane videos that cannot be shown on YouTube. I'm thinking about doing that. Maybe we'll also do book reviews on the Patreon. That doesn't sound exciting to you guys, I'm sure. But it's my goddamn channel. Oh, Ender's Game? Dude, no, I've watched... Dude, okay. Bucket. My video game name is Ender. Okay? Ender Smurf is my video game handle. I can call it Ghetto Reviews. That'd be pretty good, too. Where I just talk shit, like super Trailer Park style. Ender's Game is one of my favorite books. My wife, Renee, introduced me to Ender's Game. I hated sci-fi. And only read fantasy, and she introduced me to Ender's Game, and it became one of my favorite books. My character in original classic World of Warcraft was Ender Wiggins, and everybody that saw me would fucking just send me so many tells. Oh my god, Ender Wiggins, how'd you get that name, all this stuff. And then one day I met a person that knew Orson Scott Card, and he was like, no, he'd be chill with you having that name. I was like, awesome. Yeah, Ender's one of my favorite characters in any book I've ever read. And as you guys have seen in my old background, I have a lot of books, and I've read a lot more. I Want to Eat Your Face Off. Yeah, that's definitely a Ramones song if I've ever heard one. Yeah, Ender's Game. Dude, I've got all the Ender's Games books like right here, even though I've only read like 3 of the actual Ender's Games because I think Orson Scott Card became a little too preachy. A little too preachy after Speaker of the Dead. That's where I'm going to go with that for now because this isn't a Ender's Game stream, okay? It's a Brave New World stream. It is a book stream at this point, though. Okay, so this is a special treat for all of you. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Shabibo. Shabibo did a book review on A Brave New World. And I just cannot wait to see how dorky this gets, first of all, and how high up on his high horse is he about to get. I'm going to make some predictions. I'm going to make some predictions right now about what our boy Shabibo is going to say about A Brave New World. And I am going to say that Shabibo is going to say, this is the world the left wants. This is what's going to happen when liberals get their way. Oh, dude, I am this close to just making this a book channel now. And seeing this lady over here who reviewed Brave New World and 1984, and I'm getting excited. Okay, so, anyways, we're bringing the politics back into it. I think I've kind of kept it political tonight. Brave New World, pretty political. We're bringing Shabibo back into the fold. We haven't watched a Shabibo video in so long, and I was like, how do I bring Shabibo back? And the Lord heard, and he brought me this video. The Lord was like, fucking, I giveth. That's what he did. And this is what I got. All right, you guys ready for this? I have not seen this video, so we're watching this together.
Brave New World resonates very differently than 1984. 1984, you tend to see people who are sort of...
Okay, starting off, we're on the same page. Good job, Shabibo.
Twitter blue checks quote 1984 all the time, myself included. The reason being because it's so indicative of societies in which the government has tyrannical control. But the reality is that Brave New World is much more descriptive of the...
Okay. Shabibo's a little too intense so far, as he always is.
Feelings of sort of liberal democracy than is 1984. 1984
called it.
Is about how a repressive tyranny can take over every area of life and then provide nobody happiness, but instead sort of restrict everybody into service of the giant centralizing power. It looks more like communism or more like fascism. Brave New World is something completely different. Brave New World...
Okay. Thank you, Shabibo. I'm going to give him points. Because he said communism or fascism, and he did not say socialism, which is a common trope on the right that 1984 is a portrayal of socialism, which is not a portrayal of socialism. It's a portrayal of fascism, and that is a totalitarian government that takes advantage of an idea like socialism. So, like I've said before, even with communism, there is a ideology within communism that is utopic. It's the idea we're all have the same thing. We all get equal rights. Everything's great. We own the means of production as the laborer. All sounds really good. But almost every time that we've seen communism, we've always seen it become a complete shit show very quickly due to a certain portion of power that then takes advantage. And that is what 1984 is. 1984 is very much showing everybody exactly what can happen if you had a society that attempted to use utopian ideals to control people with the idea that, oh, don't worry, you guys, we're all in this together. Misery loves company. Good job, Shabibo. Oh, Renee's out. Off to K-drama she goes.
The world is really about how a liberal democracy can essentially drug itself into tyranny.
Did I call
how
that?
Liberal democracy
Fuck,
can rely so much on the individual pleasure and pain principle that it can blind itself to the realities of a desire for something higher. And what is lost in that process, the part that's fascinating about Brave New World is it's sort of left as an open question. The question is whether the Brave New World is really as terrible a place as Huxley.
Okay, my second prediction from the Shabibo is somehow he's going to involve the God aspect of the ending question, and he's going to introduce it in a way that he's saying that Aldous Huxley is maybe even implying that religion being absent from society is a bad thing. It's my next call. It's my next one. Dude, DJ, if you ever wanted to get into my theory about whether or not some animals are actually higher up on like the moral scale than human beings, we can definitely have that conversation, because I have some very strong theories, strong opinions on the fact that I think that animals might be better morally than human beings ever could be. Just saying.
Makes it out to be, or whether it's paradisical. And how you read Brave New World, it's hard for me to believe that if you're of the left and you believe that the height of human endeavor is sexual self-fulfillment, you read Brave New World and you come away with a picture of the Brave New World as a terrible place. It's technologically sophisticated. People can have sex with whomever they want.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think the main idea of Brave New World is just sexual satisfaction. Yes, it is a overarching theme that is constantly being kind of hammered in, and you would think that, oh, that's the main theme. I think that's more of a play on how ultimate freedom, unrestricted, can be seen as a positive, but also can be perceived as a negative, because that's really eye of the beholder, because nowhere in the book does it actually show that sexualization of society is really actually bad. It kind of leaves that question up to the reader. It leaves it up as like well, do you perceive that these people have more basic relationships with other human beings, therefore it's worse? Or do you see that because of the sexualization and the freedom of sexualization in society, that these people actually interact on a much higher level of like happiness and stuff? And that's all if you determine that soma is actually the reason that these people are happy. Because if all they do is drugging themselves to cover up for the fact that, yeah, society's all fucked up, then he has a pretty good point. But I don't think that the book specifically makes that determination.
People have drugs to make them happy. Soma, people.
Dude, is that? What do you think, Bucket? Do you think that Ben Shabibo's little bro here? Do you think little bro's fear is that no one else would have sex with him? That he would be left out? That he would be the Gerard or Berard or whatever the fucking the main character's name is? That's like short, and they think they put alcohol in his vial. When he was a baby, because he doesn't get to be a big alpha like the rest. You think he's scared of being that character? Because that's what I think it is. I think Ben Shabibo knows that the only person on earth that ever wanted to have sex with him was his wife, and I don't even think she did. Okay? I think that's why he's like so mad.
are able to sleep well at night, people are able to engage in whatever orgiastic pleasure they choose. What exactly would the left object to in Brave New World? It's a question that I find myself asking when I...
Let me answer that question, Shabibo. So I think what the left would object to is the prescription. I think that saying in a way that everybody has to do this, because I've thought about this in my book, because my book that I want to write has a clear partitioning off between liberals and conservatives, or more importantly, progressive socialists and far-right extremists. And there's a civil war that's happened that is in some way partitioned off these two societies. And I want to show like how each society's like what the epitome of it would be. What would be the full realization of far-right extremism if they got what they wanted, and what would be the full realization of what progressive socialism would be like if you got that. And one of the things that I continue to struggle with when I think about what the utopian progressive socialist society would look like is the control factor. Because being on the left, I know that we are very much for the left, for freedoms, and I think that even on the right, that they share a little bit of that position as well, except for when it comes to the things that they don't like, right? And so that's one of the themes I've struggled with in like imagining the society, is that every time I come to a place where I go, oh, the left would do this, I almost always come to a point where I go, but they wouldn't want to like legislate that. They wouldn't want that to be the main point of the society, that has to be done that way. I think that on the left, when we talk about people being accepting of everybody's sexuality, whether or not the far right wants to agree or not, I think that the left believes that the freedom of choosing your sexuality also leaves open the availability to be a monogamous smells of rich mahogany, a monogamous couple. I think that it leaves open the idea of being maybe even celibate. If you, well, yeah, not maybe even, but if that's what you wanted, I just can't imagine that you'd want to be celibate. I think that when you talk about things like being pro-choice versus pro-abortion, you look at one side that's saying you can't do this, and you look at another side that's saying, hey, you know what? You can do that if you want to. We don't want to do that. Or we can do this thing if we choose to. And I think that that's a great example of the same way that we look at sexuality, and that is, if you want to be monogamous, great. If you don't want to be monogamous, great. If you want to have sex with the same sex, great. If you want to have sex with 17 people, great. We don't fucking care. We want you to be happy. And when it comes to the drugs in Brave New World, also, once again, I think the left would disagree with the ideal that everybody should have to take the drug. I think that a person like myself is open to SSRIs, but I would never think that you should force a person to take SSRIs. And when you want to talk about classic liberalism, the main tenet of classic liberalism is the freedom to find happiness in your own life. In fact, classic liberalism would actually clash with some of the legislation that nowadays progressives have put forth. The idea that you can have hate speech. That is completely against what classic liberalism believed. Epitome. Asexual? Is that what celibacy is? Is asexuality? Whatever.
Read Brave New World, because the ideal society they've created, other than the fact that nobody seems to vote, it's a peaceful society. There's not a lot of wars, not a lot of crime. They've gotten rid of the heights of human achievement, but in return they've been granted a sense of complete social stability. And so in this sense, the book reads very conservative because it's a critique of this. But this is the open question of the book, is sort of Mustafa Man's question. If you want stability and you want low crime, do you have to trade away the heights of human achievement? And maybe what we instead do as a society is we focus in on genital pleasure, which obviously lies at the center of Brave New World. So the fact is that when you read Brave New World, again, I wonder, for young people who read Brave New World, does it horrify them?
I once again have to call out that he's always way too like hyper focused on sexuality. This is a real problem in religion. He's hyper focused on the sexuality is a part of the book, but it is not the main theme. I still disagree with that. I mean, sure, I'll give it to him that it like I said, it's overtly prevalent in the book. But I think that that's like I said earlier about Arrival. If you're focusing on the sci-fi portion of the movie, you're missing the moral subject of the movie. It's almost as though if you are not capable of getting past your hyper-focused fucking inability to accept that other people might be sexual human beings, then yeah, that becomes the main focus of the book for you. But it's almost like a distraction. It's almost a distraction from the real themes of the book, and that's being like, what does stability and happiness mean to society, and how important is it? What are you willing to do to achieve it?
Or they read it and they sort of go, well, that's kind of close to what we have now, right? We have entire swaths of the American and global economy dedicated to simply being able to go online, look at naked people, and pleasure yourself. So how is that wildly different than what we are seeing in Brave New World? We have an entire generation that's been raised to believe that they can identify in whatever gender they wish to identify.
God, he's so
up to
mad.
including no gender.
Jesus Christ, why does he have to be so mad?
How does that argue with sort of the take here? Is really the only thing that separates Brave New World from the world of today the idea that Brave New World deprives people of autonomy, but the entire case that Huxley is making is that you can condition people to believe that their autonomy is being respected even when their autonomy is not being respected, which is the conservative case, is that when you actually go so far as to inculcate into people that the height of human achievement is animalistic pleasure, they may feel that they are free.
He's arguing against taking away autonomy, but at the same time telling people that they don't get to identify as whatever gender they choose to. Like, the irony of Ben Shapiro saying that people making individual choices for their own fucking life is not a source of autonomy? Like, what? What the little bro? Dude, the thing about Ben Shabibo, the thing that makes me the angriest about Shabibo is Shabibo's the type of dude that if I could sit down with Shabibo and talk about A Brave New World and he wasn't such a goddamn weirdo, we could have a great conversation. I love to have conversations with disparate people that have completely different viewpoints and opinions than I do. But Shabibo just seems so goddamn worked up about the sexual part of this book that I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with him because he's just too goddamn worked up about it. Because he has a dog in the fight. He doesn't want people to have sex and be happy. I get it. Hey, what's up, Grey Pill?
Free, but they're actually not free. They're slaves to their own desires. They're slaves to their own passions, and they have to give up what makes people most human, those higher yearnings and aspirations. So in Brave New World, the central principle is community identity stability. So you'll remember that there were these kind of short slogans that were supposed to be indicative of the world in 1984, right? That war is peace and strength, and weakness is strength, all that kind of stuff. But here, there are three words that characterize this society: community, identity, and stability, which is really kind of fascinating, right? When you think of...
I don't know if he's going to bring this up, but he is missing the point that also in Brave New World, they have the same idea, and that is, what is it? It's hug me till you drug me, take a tab instead of a dam, or what is it? Oh, take a gram instead of a dam. There's actually lots of that kind of actual language as well in Brave New World, same as there is in 1984.
About how the left posits the world is right now, what we should be aiming for. It's kind of indicative, is not community, right? We are all together. What are we all together about? Well, not religion.
But see, that's what I hate, DJ. I hate that, and we should watch this video as well, the video on why Americans are so in love with identity politics is because we lack identity, and we've really glommed onto the fact that we're either left or right, and that just drives me nuts. And I think that that's important because young people have really started to buck that trend. They don't want to be, put in a box and told that they're not allowed to think outside of that box. At least I hope that's where we're going with that. What is that behind him? Dude, it's a see-through dress, which is making me feel really uncomfortable, first of all. I don't know why the dummy behind Ben Shapiro is wearing a see-through dress, but it's very provocative, and I feel uncomfortable. Yeah, when we say something like he's conservative, it just really annoys me that we can say that and that that's true. It drives me nuts that you can just say that person's conservative and these are the things that I bet he believes. I mean, I did it at the very beginning of this video, and then you're right. It drives me nuts. We shouldn't be that predictable. You shouldn't. So many times people on the right in my comments will say, oh, well, you're a progressive. That means you think this. And I've gone, no, I don't. Fuck you, man. Like, you can't just think I'm something because of. But I understand why they think that way. And that's because the majority of our society does live within those bubbles. They're basic bitches. They just want to be like, the rest of my group thinks this way, so I want to think this way. I was just looking at these two girls that I found out about named Claudia and I can't remember the other girl's name, that are socialists that are running for president together. In a very strange way, they're running as a president-vice president group, right? And I watched their video, and I saw things I agreed with, and I saw things I disagreed with. And my initial reaction was, do I want to, because I ask everybody if they want to come on my podcast. That's who I am. I'm a prostitute for podcast guests. And I'm like, fuck it. You know what? Why am I adverse to having a conversation with these people? Why am I feeling so awkward about bringing these people on my show? Do I think the conversation would be a good conversation? Yes. Then should I have the conversation? Yes. And it drives me nuts that on the right I can't do that. Because if I say this person's conservative, I can say they think this, they think this, they think this, and they think this. And if I bring them on my show, we won't find any middle ground because they have to stick to that ideology so hard because of their base that they'll never be able to accept any other information. That drives me nuts. It really makes me sad. He'll turn around and point. I'm not disagreeing with what you said, DJ. I'm actually agreeing with what you said. I'm just saying it's really sad that it is actually true. It is stuff from the Westworld. It does look like it's from, yeah. Exactly. Oh, Christ.
Not as a nation. We are all together in our identity, right? In respecting the identity of each and every other human being. If you don't respect my identity, you've done an act of violence to me. And what is my identity? My identity is my Freudian pleasure.
But he just complained about how... Yeah, anyways. Okay, I could probably sit here and pick apart like every 3 words Ben Shapiro says. And he says a lot of words.
Stability. Stability can only be achieved at the cost of social leveling or rigorous social separation, right? You have the alphas and the betas.
Do you like how he says social leveling as if it's a bad thing? He's like, how dare you say that all humans should be equal?
Betas and the gammas, and everybody sort of has their own category, and you stick in that category.
Yeah, not to mention, Ben, the book doesn't fucking show socially level. It clearly segregates people.
If you don't stick in that, like you can cross categories, have sex with one another, but everybody sort of has to understand their place, and so long as they are drugged into obeisance, then everything is fine. A focus on the pleasure principle, as I write in the introduction here, flattens all drives until they're similar, which allows identity to recede into community, and that produces stability. The director of the Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Center observes, quote,
I cannot wait for him to explain to me why that's actually wrong. That leads to stability. I can't wait to figure out whether or not this dude literally thinks that finding a utopian society of stability is actually a bad thing.
That is the secret of happiness and virtue, liking what you've got to do. All conditioning aims at that, making people like their unescapable social destinies. The idea is, you are created in a certain way with certain intellectual abilities and certain physical abilities. You're born either an alpha or a beta. You're either a green or a red. You're born into your caste. And since you are born in there and you can't escape it, we will condition you.
Wait. How is that different from today's society?
you to like what it is that you have to do. And the way that we'll do this is we will offer you a bribe. And the bribe is you're going to do exactly what society needs you to.
Dude, right-wing Republicans love to condition you. They love to tell you what your place is. They love to tell you, if you're LeBron fucking James, to shut up and dribble. Right-wing Republicans, they love to tell Travis Kelce, go catch the football. Why are you talking about vaccinations? Are you kidding me? Like,
to do. But in return, society is going to give you a pill, and society is going to allow you to have sex with whomever you please, and in fact mandate that people have as many sex partners as is humanly possible.
So, okay, Ben Shapiro. When I read Brave New World, I was like on the fence about whether or not it was a good thing or not. Ben Shapiro is selling me the Brave New World Society right now. Ben Shapiro is literally making me go like, actually, let's fucking do that.
So human beings are treated in Brave New World exactly like animals. Huxley describes the Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Center, which of course sounds exactly like you're hatching chickens and like you are conditioning animals. The laboratories are and workers in corpse-colored rubber gloves. They're frozen. They work under frozen dead light. Human beings are treated as widgets, but we also predestine and condition. We decant our babies as socialized human beings, right? Babies are bottles of wine. You decant them. Pavlovian conditioning is the chief methodology of the state, so basically you're going to literally physically condition, like shock therapy. Right? You're going to use electroshock therapy on small children until they do exactly what you want them to do.
Yeah, once again, pretty sure, aren't Republicans a big fan of shock therapy for gay conversion? Why is it everything that Ben Shapiro says is actually something that people on his side of the aisle actually do? Like, you want to talk about conditioning? Or how about let's talk about 1984 and where you can believe something is true even though the evidence right in front of you shows you that it's not. That I'm holding up 5 fingers and you'll tell me there's 4 because I told you there's 4. Ben Shapiro is the example of that type of brainwashing.
Books and loud noises, flowers and electric shocks. Already in the infant mind, these couples were compromisingly linked. After 200 repetitions of the same or a similar lesson would be wedded indissolubly. What man has joined nature is powerless to put us under. Again, the idea is you can break some of the higher aspirations of human beings by conditioning them to hate those higher aspirations. Again, echoes of this in modern society, this idea that we have to hijack the education system and we have to condition children to believe certain things in line with secular humanistic principles about proper behavior. This is all present.
Oh, secular humanism. That's what isn't it his craw right now. He's upset about secular. He's watched a Matt Dillahunty video and he is very upset right now.
In Brave New World. And one of the things that is very apparent in
Was it better
Brave New
than
World
Barbie?
is just how children are seen as sort of sexual objects. Now, this actually has a rich history in leftist thought, going all the way back to Wilhelm Reich, who was a psychoanalyst in the first half of the 20th century, who essentially...
God, he is so emotive. When he thinks like derogatory thoughts about a certain psychologist, you can feel it. He exudes it. He oozes like disdain for intellectuals that he doesn't agree with. And then the people he loves, like he's like such a happy little girl for like Jordan Peterson.
Argue children are sexual beings, and therefore you have to allow that sexuality to flourish, come to its full flourishing, so that they can be their fullest, truest selves. And you see that today, right now. This is why we were talking about trans kids, for example. Kids are not trans.
There it is.
And that's not a thing. Or when you talk about gay children, like gay 3-year-olds, that is not a thing. They're not sexually developed. There's no such thing as gay 3-year-old. There's a 3-year-old.
Okay, here is where I will offer an olive branch. Then are there heterosexual children? Because if there's heterosexual children, then there's gay children and there's trans children. Sexuality is not determined by choice. You're not going to find a gay person that wasn't gay for their entire life. Like, they were gay. They're gay then, they're gay now. I currently have been heterosexual. I might be gay. Heterosexual. And to this point in my life, no gay tendencies. So I will offer the olive branch that if there are no gay children or no trans children, then there are no heterosexual children. If you want to say sexualizing children seems immoral or just maybe uncouth, that's acceptable. But claiming that a human being isn't who they are later in life at a young age is kind of a ridiculous statement.
Year-old. You only develop a sexual orientation when you actually hit puberty. Yeah, but this notion that you condition kids and that you free them up to be sexual creatures, if you think that the slippery slope that we are on right now does not take...
No, he's missing the point. First of all, that's not the point that Brave New World's making, and obviously he's going to like spin this to his right-wing ideology to make it all seem so bad. But that's obviously not the point of Brave New World, as far as like Aldous Huxley isn't making the argument that we should be sexualizing children. He's making the argument for this is what it would look like in a society that's specifically free of like any like boundaries on these types of things and more accepting of, let's say, let's say there's a study on children that said this is actually really good for them. When children become more open to their sexuality earlier at an age, then they're more likely to become healthy adults later in life. Then they would have applied that in a Brave New World to be like, oh, okay, cool. This is good for them to play at ages to understand each other. And that's pretty much what in Brave New World it actually implies. It calls it erotic play or exotic play. I can't remember which it was. But it definitely implies that these young children are doing things at a very early age that are quite sexual. So, yeah.
Take us to the bottom of that hill, you are definitely wrong, and within 5 to 10 years you're going to find out just how wrong you are.
Yeah, see, he's putting so much more into this than is actually like necessary. No one's saying that 3 and 5-year-olds should be sexualized. Every time that these people talk about books being involved in libraries at schools, it's always like 15, 16-year-olds that have access. My kid at like 8 years old couldn't check out Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He's not getting the queer book at fucking 8 years old. People like Ben Shapiro are slippery slope, fear-mongering exaggerators that believe that because in Aldous Huxley's book that, you know, there was this attempt at saying this would be what the society would look like if we took it this far, that's what the left wants. That's not what anybody on the left is asking for. We're asking for people to be open to the fact that a child be a child, and it be acceptable that if a kid comes up to you and says that they're a fucking fox, you can be a fox. We don't care.
As Brave New World says, he let out an amazing truth. For a very long period before the time of our Ford, right, we'll get to Fordism in a second, and even for some generations afterward, erotic play between children had been regarded as abnormal. There was a roar of laughter, not only abnormal, actually immoral. No! And had therefore been rigorously suppressed. A look of astonished incredulity appeared on the faces of his listeners. Poor little kids not allowed to amuse themselves? They could not believe it. In any institution that threatens this particular order, community solidarity through the pleasure principle has to be treated as the enemy. History has to be obliterated. Family has to be obliterated. The home has to be leveled.
He's so
Citizens
mad.
are actually made nauseous
at
the thought of home. Because the idea of home is that you might actually have a small platoon, right, as Edmund Burke put it, that is capable of standing up to the broader community. And you don't want that. So people have to be conditioned to believe.
Once again, no left person believes this. No left-leaning person is saying that there's no need for community, that there's no need for family. That's fucking ridiculous. If anything, hardcore right-wing Republicans are the ones doing that because they're the ones saying, I'll leave my family for Trump. They're the people that are going, if my ideology offends you, then you can fucking leave. Okay? Like, and we're getting away from the point, too. Ben's getting me worked up. We're getting away from the point that the book is actually making, and he's clearly taking this off on a right-wing rant about left-wing ideals that don't actually exist, when the book itself was made from Aldous Huxley's own words in a way as like a little bit of a warning to society that you can be controlled through good means, just like you can be controlled through bad means, and that good means could actually be a little more insidious. It's probably offending me more right now that he's like completely given up on actually reviewing the book itself and now is just making it about left-wing ideals. That's probably more offensive to me than, I can't right now. I'm getting worked up because
believe that home is a place of terrible smells and yelling and screaming parochial
it is.
interests. Right, a few small rooms, stiflingly over-inhabited by a man, by a periodically teeming woman, by a rabble of boys and girls of all ages, no air, no space, an under-sterilized prison, darkness, disease, and smells. And so, who is posited as the gods in this particular system? There are two, right? Ford and Freud. So, Ford,
God, he's
because
so
everybody
bad.
has to be conditioned, and so everybody's going to be put into their spot in the assembly line.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
what he's
the
implying.
sort of principle of economic division of labor is now broadened out to include a division of actual humanity and sexual pleasure in Freud. Quote, our Ford, or our Freud, as for some inscrutable reason he chose to call himself whenever he spoke of psychological matters, right? They're supposed to be kind of two halves of the same whole. Our Freud had been the first to reveal the appalling dangers of family life. The
You mean like the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit?
world was full of fathers and was therefore full of misery, full of mothers, therefore of every kind of perversion from sadism to chastity, full of brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, full of madness and suicide. The state says that traditional institutions foster rules and responsibilities, loves and hates directed and intent, and these elements make for chaos, right? They undermine stability because you might love your family more than you love other people, which of course people do. You might like your community more than you like other communities. We can't have that. Quote, feeling strongly and strongly what was more in solitude, in hopeless individual isolation, how could they be stable? But now, under the state, people are free. They are free from thought, from the evils of something called liberalism, which promoted liberty to be inefficient and miserable. Now, again, this is one of the interesting things, is the way that Huxley describes liberalism. He is basically suggesting that if people were left free to choose, they would choose family. And so in order to fully experience freedom under our state, right, or under our Freud, freedom is going to be relegated to the sexual realm, but taken away in every other realm. They're free from religion, quote.
Wait, what do you... I don't even know what he's trying to say there. I thought he was going to talk about liberalism. Classical liberalism is the freedom of thought and the freedom of the ability to search out anything that leads to your happiness and your right to do so. So I think when Huxley's saying something like getting rid of classical liberalism or liberalism, getting away from liberalism, that's the idea that no longer are you free to seek happiness at the expense of others. That your happiness is no longer your main focus, that you're going to be happier by focusing on the community, and therefore that's going to bring you more happiness because you're not focusing completely on the smaller area. But once again, we're getting away from the fact that Huxley was writing this as a warning to society about these things, and not so much as some type of, I don't know, argument for liberalism that Ben Shapiro's trying to make it this out to be. Later, DJ. Thanks, man.
All crosses had their tops cut and became T's.
Oh,
and if you're not happy, then eventually we just give you soma, right? Quote, all the advantages of Christianity and alcohol, none of their defects. So Mustafa Mann is the world controller for Western Europe, and he's sort of the voice of the Brave New World. He's the defender of the Brave New World and the philosophical expositor of the Brave New World. He says, quote, now, such is progress. The old men work, the old men copulate, the old men have no time, no leisure from pleasure, not a moment to sit down and think.
Okay, what are these pictures on the side? That's not from the book, right? I don't think that is. Why do they keep putting up pictures of black people with afros? Racist.
Or if ever, by some unlucky chance, such a crevice of time should yawn in the solid substance of their distractions, there's always soma, delicious soma. 1/2 gram for a half holiday, 1 gram for a weekend, 2 grams for a trip to the gorgeous east, 3 for a dark eternity on the moon, returning whence they find themselves on the other side of the crevice, safe on the solid ground of daily labor and distraction, scampering from feely to feely. Those are 3D movies essentially. Yeah. In which you are brought into the action. Again, sounds a lot like the metaverse. From girl to pneumatic girl, from electromagnetic golf course to, etc. So there are a bunch of characters in Brave New World who provide
not enjoyable
perspectives
at
on the state.
all.
Right? Sort of different perspectives. It's like a bunch of blind men feeling the elephant, and through their descriptions, you realize that what you're looking at is in fact an elephant. So you have Bernard Marx, who is just jealous that he's unable to fulfill the pleasure principle. So at the beginning, he dislikes the system because he feels left out by the system.
Dude, he sees this book in such a negative light. Jesus Christ. I thought his name was Bertrand, but I guess it is Bernard. He's more of an example. It's like the character itself is like an example of a feeling of not belonging in that society. Once again, kind of an argument against the necessity of a society that exists of strictly community, of strictly caring for each other, and how in some ways that can also lead to some people being outcast from that society. Bernard is outcast because he doesn't like that Lenina is being passed around from guy to guy. He doesn't like that because he's shorter than the other alphas. He's seen as less. He doesn't like the society and the way that it's ran, and he's a bit of a bin. He's a bit of the person that's bucking against things and speaks out against them, and it's weird that he's not filling this character. Little self-hate going on there. It's just weird, the like negative lens that he's going at. Like, when I'm looking at it, I can see where some of the values of the book could be implied that those are my values, and I want to analyze those and kind of be like, oh, is that good or bad that I think that? Is it good or bad for society that it exists? And he almost just looks at all of these things as being like the most negative possible way they could be.
System. Then he's included in the system, and then he's angry at anybody who would rail against the system.
Yeah, sound
Crown,
familiar?
Who believes in the pleasure principle of the world state, but finds herself drawn to monogamy, right? Because it turns out that, just as in reality, in this book, women tend to be drawn toward the...
That is not what that book implies. Nor does this like generation seem to be also. I don't know. Maybe I should back that up with facts and statistics. God, you take so many things out of context.
The institution of monogamy and familial love and long-lasting relationships. But in order for us to have the pleasure principle be at the center of everything, we have to reduce sex down to pneumatic descriptions, right? Sex just becomes how many partners you have, the actual physical pleasure of the thing, as opposed to emotional connection or forming deeper relationships. And it's something modern society has done an excellent job in doing, is disconnecting sex from relationships.
He's so mad.
On the show, and routinely to my wife, that it is amazing how if you look at pop culture and the way that pop culture creates the order of human relationships, it's been completely reversed. So it used to be, you fall in love, you get married, you have sex.
No.
Now the order is...
No, it has never been in that order, Ben Shapiro. It has never been in that order. That's a great pause moment, too. That's his O face right there. That face happens about 17 seconds in the copulation for Ben Shapiro.
You have sex, maybe you fall in love, maybe you get married. So you will see shows like Friends in the 1990s was famous for doing this, where you'd have people hopping into the sack with one another, and then the big decision was whether to say I love you, which is such a reversal of the normal course of human interactions. Normally, in order for women to want to have sex with men, this is just general social science data, they want to have an emotional connection with the man beforehand. So typically, the way that society treated that was you dedicate your...
Ben Shapiro's the only dude that will tell you about like sexual stimulation from a doctor's point of view. He's like, look, I looked up some studies and I talked to some doctors and they told me that women like this. Fuck asking the women.
Yourself. You say that you love somebody, you discover love for somebody, and then because of that, you want to commit to that person, and then because of that commitment, now you can have a fulfilling sex life. Instead, they've decided to reverse that. That's how it works in Brave New World as well. So Lenina gets caught between her own sort of instinct for monogamy and relationships, and the fact that the society keeps telling her over and over and over that what she really should do is have sex with whomever she quote-unquote wants, even though she doesn't really want to. Mustafa Mann, he makes it clear that what the goal is, right? In all of these dystopian books, you need one character who basically just says the thing out loud. So in 1984, you have a character who tells the main character like all the details of exactly what the Brave New World is going for, right? There's this long monologue near the end of 1984 where this character who's a representative of the state explains exactly what the state is doing and how it really is all about just crushing people. And here, Mustafa Mann is the representative of the state. He makes it clear that intellectual life cannot survive if you are going to have stability. Because if people have too many thoughts, and if people have too many desires and dreams that go beyond exactly how to pleasure themselves, then the social order is undermined.
That was the worst book review I've ever heard in my life. Jesus Christ, Shabibo. I thought this was the one thing he couldn't fail at. Failed screenwriter, failed political analyst, failed book reviewer. Just can't. Okay. All right. Well, I promised, and Bucket probably made it. Bucket, you're my favorite, Bucket. You're my favorite. Okay. Fucking, you can tell everybody too. I'm not one of those people that says don't tell anybody. You tell everybody. You make them all jealous. Every one of them. Okay. So I promised, and I'm gonna remember this. No, where is it? Eat your face? Bath salts. Let's just try bath salts. Bucket, do you know who MC Chris is? If you don't know who MC Chris is, you're about to know who MC Chris is, my friend. And this is also going to be stuck in your head, sorry.
You know that I've gone to hell. Don't ask me, I'll never tell. I looked at God as I fell. I crawled out my grave. I trimmed my soul for some flesh. This is my cannibal quest. I wasn't looking for this, but now you look like steak. Your head, I'll be holding. Ripped jeans, bones were showing. Bright night, chakras glowing. I just scored some bath salts, baby. Hey, I just met you. And this is crazy. But I just did bath salts.
Your face looks tasty.
It's hard to look right. Eyesight's hazy, but I smell your blood trail. And you smell tasty. Hey, I just met you. And this is crazy. But I just did bath salts. Your face looks tasty. It's hard to look right. Eyesight's hazy, but I smell your blood trail. And you smell tasty. There were brains on the wall. I saw the government fall. We all took over the mall. There's fountains in my way. Some beg and borrow and steal so that they might find a meal. I scream and guess what? You squeal. And then I eat your brain. Your head, I'll be holding. Ripped jeans, bones were showing. Bright night, chakras glowing. I just scored some bath salts, baby. Hey, I just met you. And this is crazy. But I just did bath salts. Your face looks tasty. If you make a fucking noise, there might be a chance. I just did bath salts. Your face looks tasty. Hey, I just met you. And this is crazy. But I just did bath salts. Your face looks tasty. If you make a fucking noise, there might be a chance. I just did bath salts.
I'm going with that, Bucket. What is it? Oh, it's up here, right? It's an amazing song.
If you make a fucking noise, there might be a chance. I just did bath salts. Your face looks tasty. Hey, I just met you. And this is crazy. I just did bath salts. Your face looks tasty. If you make a fucking noise, there might be a chance. I just did bath salts. Your face looks tasty. Before you came into my life, I was so hungry. I was so hungry.
So amazing. So amazing. All right. Yeah, if you don't know who MC Chris is one of my favorite. He's like kind of like a, I guess I call it like nerd hop or something like that. Dork hop, geek hop, I don't know. But MC Chris is absolutely fucking amazing. I will put a bunch of MC Chris videos in the Discord when I have a chance, because Fet's Vet, also amazing. Speaking of Star Wars references, I think he has a Han Solo song, Yoda song for sure. He has a Batman song that's dope. So many good songs. So many good songs. All right. Well, Bucket, you were here for me. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. It was therapeutic for me to talk about my book with somebody. Someone cares to hear about me talk about my book. It's so funny the two times that I have attempted to do anything but make fun of Trump supporters, I've had like 3 viewers. I tried to talk about Rin the one time, and I think James and DJ Frank are the only people that showed up. They're like, yeah, cool, dude. If we're not talking politics, I don't want to hear that shit. And this is why my YouTube coach hates me. He's like, stop doing that shit. Just talk about politics. I don't want to just talk about politics. I'm a real human, okay? I'm here to talk about books, too. All right, Bucket. I appreciate you. I love you. I'm so thankful for you. And I will be releasing a new podcast from Adam Mockler. Probably not next week, but the week after that. We should be on that. And we're gonna figure out what the actual type of content I'm supposed to be doing. So please, everybody, tell me what you like, so that way I can do the content you guys like. All right, Bucket. I appreciate you. Bye.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here. Huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. Aperture science. We do what we must because we can. For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead. But there's no sense crying over every mistake. You just keep on trying till you run out of cake. And the science gets done and you make a neat gun for the people who are still alive. I'm not even angry. I'm being so sincere right now. Even though you broke my heart and killed me and tore me to pieces and threw every piece into a fire. As they burned, it hurt because I was so happy for you. Now these points of data make a beautiful line, and we're out of data, we're releasing on time. So I'm glad I got burned. Think of all the things we learned for the people who are still alive. Go ahead and leave me. I think I prefer to stay inside. Maybe you'll find someone else to help you. Maybe Black Mesa.